to head up to the Eccles Center, the football center up on campus, to spend some time with the Utah coaching, the Utah coaching staff, and of course the staff all together. Great to see Paul Kirk, of course, and Morgan Scalley, and all the assistants, the coordinators, the positional coaches. Had a chance to chat with a bunch of them. Checked out the new facility. The cafeteria is awesome. I'll tell you what, we've come a long, long way from debating whether or not a bagel is a snack or a meal. And once you put cream cheese on said bagel, that is a meal. And you were only allowed so many meals as a player once upon a time. Those boys are eating well. Tell you what, beautiful facility. Great to see Morgan. I'll use the opportunity to tease that Morgan will be with us coming up on Friday at 3:30 to talk some Ute football. All the coaches in really good spirits. Spring ball getting going up on the hill. Obviously, we're months away from games being played, but never a bad time to talk football and remind you that your program's in good hands. Kyle Whittingham leaves, and he lives in Ann Arbor now. Morgan is ready for this. He is up to the task. So we'll get into it on the program today. It was off the record. But, you know, Porter, it's probably good because I was thinking about this. I mean, that was for ball knowers. That was for grinders. That was for dudes that just want to hang out, watch tape, and talk ball. I don't want to confuse our listeners. If you were in that room, it's because you know ball.
Yeah, you don't want to dive too much into the minutia on radio. Yeah. It just becomes convoluted. It becomes confusing.
Yep.
But we'll dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, no, we will. I mean, we're not really allowed to talk about much. But even if I... Oh, what do you want me to break down gap schemes?
Yeah.
No, I just don't want to bore. I don't want to bore the listeners. I don't want to confuse the listeners. I can tell you that Spider 2Y Banana was not discussed.
Shout out Frank Caliendo.
Indeed. But I'll tell you what, man, that's a beautiful, beautiful building. I don't get up there as much as I'd like to. It's a much better spot than it used to be. I'll tell you that much.
Shout out Alex Smith.
Indeed.
And the Eccles.
And Zane Beatles, whose name is on certain things. And yeah, it's a beautiful spot. So fun to sit with some of the assistant coaches that I hadn't met until today, and obviously catch up with Morgan and Paul and his staff. Fun opportunity this morning on this Tuesday morning. So we'll get into what we can with you on the show today. Obviously, there is a ton going on. The Madness of March is here. It is upon us. So the tournament will get going on Thursday. Reminder, it is the play-in game. 2 play-in games today. One begins at 4:40, UMBC taking on Howard. 2 very competitive, smaller schools, but very good basketball teams. And then, of course, BYU fans will be glued to the TV tonight to find out who Brigham Young will play on Friday in Portland. Will it be Texas? Will it be NC State? These 2 teams played earlier in the year in Maui. Texas got the best of them. I'm going to go out on a limb and say NC State gets their revenge, but we'll get into it coming up on the show. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, Alabama has a pretty good team, but a rough story. It's not funny. I'm not laughing. But Aiden Holloway was found with 2.1 pounds of pot. It's too much pot. Probably moderate a little bit, certainly right before the NCAA tournament. This young man is in trouble. So he was at his apartment. It is a felony drug possession charge. This kind of reminds me of the Laramie Tunsil situation right before the draft when he had a gas mask on smoking weed. And the early video was you couldn't see who was under the gas mask. And Laramie Tunsil was like, no, that's not me. And then the video an hour later, the dude took off the gas mask and it was Laramie Tunsil. It's like, dude, it's totally you. Like, don't do that right before the NFL draft. And so Aiden Holloway, who's a very good player, is in some trouble. He was, quote, removed from campus. He's not with the team. Nate Oates, of course, has a really good team. They're going to take on Hofstra on Friday, right before the NCAA tournament. Class C felony, posted a $5,000 bail, was released from Tuscaloosa County Jail shortly after his arrest. But we'll get you ready for the tournament. We'll help you fill out some brackets, give you some tips here or there as we're high-speed head to the start of the tournament. And our local schools, as we talked about yesterday, Utah State has a 9 seed on the 9 line in San Diego. We'll take on Villanova, the 8 seed. Utah State's a favorite to win that game. And should they advance, barring a miracle from Strong Island, Long Island taking on Arizona. Barring a miracle there, Utah State, should they advance, will take on Arizona, which obviously would be a tough task. BYU, as we referenced, will take on the winner of NC State and Texas. And should they advance, they'll take on Gonzaga. Gonzaga, the 3 seed, really good, big defensive team, physical team. No update on the injury to their big kid. He was listed as questionable. When the injury first came down, they said he would miss 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks, and it's been 8.5. So Braden Huff, a really good player, is out for the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament, but is progressing and is hoping to get back maybe for round 2, but more realistically, Sweet 16. This kid's a pro. They're not going to rush him back. And if he cannot play, it will be a very interesting situation for BYU to potentially pull off the upset. Jalen Worthy is dealing with a thigh contusion. He is questionable against Kennesaw State. So Gonzaga dealing with some injury issues. A lot of teams are, quite frankly. It's one of the things, whether it's college, pro, basketball, football, doesn't matter. Any team that wins a championship, you're going to have a tremendous amount of injury luck. That's just part of the deal. And right now there are some teams that are not in that boat. The play-in tomorrow for the men's college basketball NCAA tournament, Prairie View A&M will take on Lehigh. And then it's Miami of Ohio. Remember them. They were 31-0 before losing the final game of their conference championship. They're going to take on SMU. SMU's a pretty good team. So there you go. The Salt Lake City Stars are in Minnesota for a game tomorrow. The Stars are off tonight. Oh, wait. No, it's the Utah Jazz. Kind of. No Jazz game tonight, but they're going to take on Minnesota coming up tomorrow. None of our local women's teams made the NCAA tournament. That hasn't happened since 2018. Utah will play a game on Thursday afternoon at 4:30 against EKU. RSL in action on Sunday. It's a Sunday tilt against San Diego on the road. This team is off to a red-hot 3-1 start. San Diego's very, very good. So that'll be a difficult task for them. The NFL free agency news continues to kind of roll along. One eye ahead to the NFL draft with an eye on some of the local kids, Caleb Lomu, Spencer Fano. Jalen Waddle has been dealt to the Broncos from the Dolphins as the Dolphins are looking like they're going to pivot a little bit. Hollywood Brown goes from Kansas City to the Eagles. The Eagles have another wide receiver with the last name Brown that we're kind of wondering if he's going to be around. Obviously, A.J. Brown will keep you up to date there on the show. All right, good guest list. Buckle in for a masterclass, Basketball 101, the professor. That's not his name. I'll just say that today. Gordy Chiesa, the best, will stop by on the, not the eve of the NCAA tournament, but as we're high-speed ahead to the NCAA tournament. But excited to bring Gordy in, as always, as Sean continues his travels. We are fortunate because we benefit with Gordy being able to join us, typically join Sean, NBA Daily Assist, Tim McMahon. If you are in the boat where your nephew or your coworker or some random person has asked you to fill out a bracket and you know nothing about it, Ken Pomeroy is going to join us today. Now, I put the caveat of whether it's Ken Pomeroy or Jay Billis or your aunt who thinks a coach is handsome, this is the most random tournament in the world. So no one really knows, but if you're confused, going chalk is never a bad idea as far as who's actually going to win the thing. 17 of the last 18 national champs, if I read this correctly, either named UConn or a number 1 seed. The only exception was Villanova, who I think was a 2. But Ken Pomeroy, one of my favorites this time of year. Then Stanford legend was almost a Ute. Little known fact about Casey Jacobson, he almost played for Rick Majerus back in the day. Really good college player, played in the pros. And he analyzes college basketball now as well. Kyle Whittingham addressed the media in Ann Arbor today. And there was a soundbite. We're going to get to this at 3:30. So set your alarms for 3:30. There was a soundbite. Here's how I'll tease it. A media member asked Kyle about something his defensive coordinator said. For some reason, Kyle assumed it was Morgan and not Jay Hill, who is, his current defensive coordinator. And we got a little defensive wit. Because Morgan was thrown under the bus unnecessarily. I'm not sure why Kyle took in that direction. We'll get to that coming up at 3:30 today. Gordy Chiesa, Tim McMahon, Ken Pomeroy, Casey Jacobson, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Hello, happy Tuesday. And that guy, knower of ball, grinder of tape.
Yes.
Porter Larson. Now, we cannot discuss specifics, but a lovely morning, 70-degree weather hanging out on campus. You could do worse than that.
Yeah. A big shout out to, I'm doing a lot of shout outs in this opening segment, it appears.
Get all the shout outs out.
Alex Smith, of course, Frank Caliendo, and our friends up at the University of Utah football program.
Wait, why are we shouting out Frank Caliendo?
Because you're...
Oh, Spider 2Y Banana. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's cool to get an inside look at some of Morgan's processes, some of his expectations, and some of his, I guess, changes already to the Utah football program, and getting some insight into his mind and how he operates. That was kind of the gist of what we call the chalk talk up on campus with Morgan, and a pretty good lunch on top of that.
I saw you went with some beef stroganoff. Did I see that correctly?
They had a kind of a make your own pasta situation. And it's good beef, some fettuccine.
Lovely.
I guess you could call it a stroganoff.
It's a heavy lunch. I went with a yogurt and water because I'm old. And also, it's my birthday. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, I did walk into the building today, and the staff was gathered to sing happy birthday. Did I see you there singing, or were you?
I didn't know that was happening.
Oh.
I did wish you happy birthday.
Okay. All right.
Once I knew.
All right. Well, I anticipate. My brother sent me some crumble this morning, so I've already had like a cookie. There's a cake outside. So over at the facility, went yogurt and water, do 4 hours of radio, ready to go.
And then you'll get your birthday fixins in.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Happy 50th.
Okay, not yet. I mean, not far off. But not yet.
47?
48.
Okay.
48 trips around the sun as of today. So I'm like, if somebody asks me how old you are, I cannot say mid-40s anymore. 48, you're officially in your late 40s.
Yeah, but you could probably get away with it.
Well,
they're not going to like quiz you on it.
I don't know. I believe in being honest.
You're just in your 40s. Just go with that.
In your 40s. So when it comes to like being on dating apps, you need to be honest about your age and your height.
This is true.
Okay, let's be intellectually honest here, Porter.
I am on board with that.
Okay. All right. How tall are you? You're 6'1"?
I'm on a good day.
What?
If I've ever
on
been
a bad
measured,
day, what do you lose an inch? It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, you're moping around. You're a little.
Okay. So
all right.
If
I've ever been measured, I've been 6 foot, maybe like a half inch.
Okay, there you go. Good stuff. All right, Gordy Chiesa. He doesn't necessarily have a PhD, but if there's anybody that has that in basketball, it's him. We're going to bring him right off the top on a Tuesday, but before Gordy stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks. Welcome to The Drive with Spence.
Oh, calm down, Kayvon. We only need one of those. Shoot your shot with Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. Don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Available in Utah. You're safe there. Don't worry about it. New feature alert. Prize Picks now has early payouts. Excuse me, if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, it was off the record, so there are no details that we are allowed to discuss because it's always good to be able to get a little access to the Utah coaches, both Morgan Scalley and obviously all the assistant coaches, Kevin McGivern. Sat next to Colton Swan for a little bit, friend of the show, defensive coordinator. It was a chalk talk and a media lunch that Morgan had up at the Utah football facility. And I will just tell you, I know there are a lot of people, and we've got to be very clear about this. I think this is the way I'm going to roll, like as we continue to kind of talk about this stuff. What Kyle Whittingham accomplished here over the course of 2 decades is nothing short of remarkable. And the standard that he has set is going to be difficult for anybody, whether it's Morgan Scalley or Andy Reid or somebody you hire that's got a track record of doing this, to meet this standard right away and then maintain it. We were spoiled, okay? I often talk about my experience at the University of Utah when I was there during the Rick Majerus era, and Rick Majerus set a standard for basketball at Utah that was going to be difficult for anybody to meet, and no one has been able to do it since. Okay, and we always talked about how we were spoiled, being able to watch those teams that didn't just make NCAA tournament appearances, but made runs, went to Final Fours, and at one point a Red Bull away from winning a national championship with that loss against Kentucky. And when you set a standard like that, it's just going to be difficult for anybody who comes after you, regardless of who you are. Ray Giacoletti, Jim Boylan, Larry Koskowiak, Craig Smith. You know, we could go down the list of coaches that have tried to get Utah basketball back to where they were once upon a time. And outside of a incremental moment in time, it has never been the same. I'm not saying that's the case here. In fact, I'm bringing this up because I feel like it's going to be the exact opposite. Nobody will be able to predict exactly what next season is going to look like for Utah football because it's a brand new staff for the most part. Sharif Shah, Marky Atuaya, both were there today, by the way. Good to see them. And obviously, Morgan has been the defensive coordinator for a long time, and now he just moves over a seat. There is some continuity, but there's a tremendous amount of unknowns, and there's a tremendous amount of simply this. Guys that are doing things for the first time. Whether it's, your defensive coordinator when it comes to Colton Swan. Now, of course, Kevin McGivern has been an OC elsewhere, but has he ever been able to do that at this level? This is kind of the first opportunity on this level to see what he can do. Jordan Gross has been coaching and was able to Jordan Gross can put down a salad, man. I'll tell you what, that dude sat down with a plate. I was like, holy smokes. But it was good to see Jordan Gross, who, of course, has been coaching, but not at this level. And I could keep going. Again, there are plenty of coaches on this staff that have done this before, but it's a new dynamic because they're all doing it for the first time together, and some of them doing it for the first time on this level, right? And then you dig into the roster where the bottom line is this. The main impetus for Utah's offensive ground attack last year, the best rushing team in the Big 12, and one of the top 2 or 3 rushing teams in the country, depending on which metric you look at. I mean, look, Devin Dampier is very, very good. They had a number of different backs. Wayshawn Parker last year, it was those 5 big uglies up front, those 5 dudes, those 5 offensive linemen who are all gone. And 2 are about to be drafted in the first round. 1 might be a top 5 pick. Like, that was a historically special offensive line. They're all gone. Jim Harding lives in Ann Arbor now. And so Jordan has to rebuild the entire thing from the ground up. I talked about this prior to the start of the basketball season, and I'm going to bring kind of the same dynamic in play for our football coverage. If you're expecting this team to go undefeated and win a Big 12 championship and, go to the college football playoff, let's just pump the brakes a little bit. And I'm not going to define what success looks like in March. That would be a fool's errand. We're months away from a football game. The schedule is pretty good for Utah. The schedule is also pretty good for BYU. The schedule is a joke for Texas Tech. We were talking about the matrix that was put together with some of the staffers up there where these schools essentially know their conference schedule a couple of years in advance. So I'm not going Joe Rogan conspiracy theory on you. You should get vaccinated. But anyway, this has been the deal for a while. Texas Tech, who has one of the top 2 or 3 transfer classes in America, again, not just the Big 12, avoids Utah, avoids BYU, and the 2 or 3 hardest teams they play are going to be at their place. Barring some catastrophic string of injuries, looks like Texas Tech is going to be playing in the Big 12 championship game again. Who will their opponent be? The exciting thing is there is a chance that BYU-Utah game is a literal play-in, a virtual play-in to play Texas Tech again in the conference championship. Now, look, every single year there are a couple of teams in the Big 12, a couple of teams across the landscape of college football that nobody sees coming, and they shock everybody. Like Cincinnati was better than we thought they were going to be. A little bit of buzz around Houston, who finished well last year and won 10 games. I just and maybe it's biased because I'm doing sports talk radio show a mile away from Rice-Eccles Stadium and 40 minutes away from Provo. I believe this conference has one tier at the top, and that tier is Texas Tech by themselves. They have earned that. But the tier underneath them is Utah and BYU, and that's it. The gap between Utah and BYU and whoever you think is next, maybe TCU, figure something out this year, brand new coaching staff at Iowa State, maybe Dave Aranda figures some things out, maybe Baylor's in the mix. I think a lot of people think Houston will be right there, but it is Texas Tech 1, and then it's Utah and BYU right after that. Then there's a gap between Utah and BYU and whoever you want to put in Tier 3. So it makes the potential for this season really exciting. The non-conference schedule, they should be able to handle. Idaho, Arkansas, and Utah State at home. On the road, at Iowa State, home against Kansas, at Colorado, home against Houston. You love they get Houston at home. At Cincinnati. BYU at home, which, of course, is big. The trip to Arizona, the final, well, I'll say 3 of the final 4 games. Because, again, the way they formulated the schedule is a little bit of a joke. BYU at home, at Arizona, and then at TCU. That 3-game stretch, to me, will probably tell us whether or not Utah has a shot at a conference championship. But setting the expectation at anything beyond, 8, 9, 10 wins. The first year you're a head coach, it's a different thing. Do I think Morgan is ready? Yes. Was that solidified in my mind after spending some time with him today? It was. He's very organized, very energetic. It's a much different vibe up there in the building. All the coaches appear to be really juiced. They all seem to really like working with each other. So, look, you know me. I'm a results over vibes guy. But at least for now, the vibes in the football building appear to be very, very good. All right, we'll catch a break. Gordy Chiesa is our first guest on a Tuesday show. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, for the first time, I aborted. Did you see? I was attempting. I have the dumbest habit as a radio host. I tend to put like a piece of beef jerky in my mouth 10 seconds before we come back on air. I'm usually able to get it down, but did you say I had to abort so we can get to Gordy?
You had to get rid of it. I like to. This might be gross for some people. I like to harbor the beef jerky in my mouth, almost like it's a chaw.
Okay. Well, it's not that gross. I mean, it could be like straight tobacco. Better,
right.
Better it's beef jerky.
So yeah, sometimes I'll have a thing of beef jerky in my mouth for quite some time.
What do you think?
You can just keep it.
What do you think Gordy Chiesa snacks on throughout the day? Gordy, you're a very energetic guy. How do you maintain your energy throughout the day?
I usually have some yogurt and some apples.
Lovely. I had some yogurt this morning. How you doing, my friend? Thank you for the time.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. So a lot of people, of course, know you as an NBA head coach, an NBA assistant coach. Once upon a time, you were coaching in college. Just take us behind the scenes of a couple of days before the NCAA tournament. What are coaching staffs doing right now to make sure their players are ready to go?
They are absolutely frenzy about it, where they're trying to, get game films as far as studying them and breaking them down about the opponent. And then also they'll be showing on the staff when, Lord willing, the team wins, they're ready for the second scouting report for the Saturday game. So if it's Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday, there's somebody on staff that's ready for the next game after that. So it's really highly intense. And it's so much fun because it's a accumulation of all the things that the team worked on during the whole season, and now they have a new calendar as far as getting ready for March Madness. There's nothing like it. 1987, a long, long time ago, the Providence Friars got to the Final Four, so I saw it firsthand, the absolute intensity of it, and so much is having Spence having tremendous guard play. So the teams are going to advance in this year's March Madness. Besides the preparation and the superior coaching by all these elite mentors, is what teams have the better guard play that can make something out of nothing. And that's where it's so critical. And also, Spence, to add to that, is the three-point shot. We know that it's such a factor in games where it's both your ally or both sometimes your nemesis, where can you make threes and can you guard the three-point line?
For our listeners, Gordy, who don't watch college basketball, but this time of year rolls along and they're asked to fill out a bracket for a family tournament or a work tournament, do you have any sage wisdom and advice we can impart upon them?
Oh, of course, Spencer. Well, last time I won the pool, the president, I believe, was Ronald Reagan. So that's the first thing. But my brackets, I've done it already. I give it to our people in the studio already. Spence, my bracket is a little bit different. I call it very underground. That's the first thing. It's very fans friendly. It's very cosmic, my picks. It's very Vogue, and it's based on global warming.
All right.
Those are my picks.
I love it.
That's the criteria. Because remember, the more you know, the less you know. Spence, we all know people that never watched college basketball, and suddenly they win the $1 million pool or something, right? It's incredible. So there's no rhyme or reason. The more you know, you think you know, the less you know.
Yeah, and the funny thing is people that don't fully understand that believe that a guy like you should be able to pick every game. I mean, this time of year I get an email from my aunt that says, "Will you
your aunt.
Yes.
I love it.
Will you fill out my bracket?" And then she calls me 2 weeks later mad at me because it didn't go well. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, and that's the beauty of it. It's nothing like it. So it really started when there was this merger with ESPN in the beginning with the Big East back in the early 1980s. Remember, Spence, it's hard to believe, but in 1970, I know you guys, many people weren't even born yet, but in 1970, Al McGuire, the great coach of Marquette University, turned down an NCAA bid to go to the NIT. And the reason why is because he had 7 players besides himself, a native New Yorker. He said, "Why do I want to go take my Marquette team?" At that time was 26-3. Go to Omaha, Nebraska. I want to go to New York. And that's when the NCAA said, if you get invited to the tournament, you have to go to the tournament. And that created now such an unbelievable thing. And in 1975, there was only 24 teams in the tournament. So a lot of at that era, only one team from each league could go. So there's no at-large bids. So suddenly the second-place team in the ACC or the second-place team in the SEC was going to the NIT, not going to it. Then expanded from 24 to 32, then to 64, and now 68. So it's been an unbelievable metamorphosis of all these different of the March Madness, and it's really, truly, it is absolutely fun.
Since you brought up Al McGuire, Gordy, I have a question for you because I've always wondered the story about how Doc Rivers got his nickname. I've heard it was either Rick Majerus or Al McGuire. Do you know that origin story?
Oh, very much. Yeah, it was Rick Majerus, the former great coach at the University of Utah. At basketball camp, when Doc Rivers was a high school player, and he went to Al McGuire's camp in Milwaukee, and Dr. J was in vogue in that era in the mid-'70s. Dr. J was an incredible player, acrobatic, flying in the air, etc. You feel the adjectives in. And so Doc Rivers, meaning his first name is actually Glenn Rivers, would take the ball in the camp games to the basket and swoop into the rim and show his dunking skills like Dr. J. Thus, Rick Majerus called him Doc. And, of course, they recruited him years later. They were to Marquette, and the rest is history.
Oh, okay. There it is. So one more question about the tournament, then we'll get to some NBA stuff. Michigan has the LJ Kaysen kid out with a torn ACL. Duke has Caleb Foster might return later in the tournament. Which of the number one seeds, Gordy, do you like the most?
Duke, still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Duke still. Here's my Final Four. In case I know you're, Spence, you and Porter dying to hear my Final Four.
Absolutely.
My Final Four.
Absolutely.
Here it is. My Final Four this year is Duke, Houston, Virginia, and Arkansas.
Ooh. What do you like about Arkansas?
I told you it's based on global warming. I told you that earlier.
I think Arkansas is a 4 seed. They've got that kid, the Acuff kid, who can really score. But tell me what you like about John Calipari's team.
That again, I always say, I often bet the jockey, not the horse.
Ah, okay.
So I do, and so the 4 coaches that I perceive quote betting on, all 4 of them are really tremendous coaches. And 2 of them are relatively young, and 2 of them are older, meaning older Kelvin Sampson and John Calipari, and young John Shire, and also Ryan Odom. So I bet the jockey. If things are almost equal, I bet the jockey, not the horse.
Love it. Let me kick the tires with our local teams. I'm sure BYU and Utah State fans want to hear what you have to say. Utah State's a slight favorite, Gordy. Round 1 against Villanova. Coach Calhoun was a little disappointed with his seed, and I don't blame him. I mean, they won the regular season and the conference championship as far as the tournament goes. They land on the 9 line. They'll probably see Arizona round 2, unless our friends in Long Island can pull off a miracle. But what do you make of what Utah State's potential is in this tournament?
Losing the first round. Yikes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to Villanova.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, also, as a coach, I know you get emotional. I understand, and the fans are emotional. They should be. But really, you just got to play. In other words, you can't say to the team, this is bad, our seeding. Just play. Just go out and play and prove everybody wrong on the selection committee. And that's I've been saying for decades, Spence, about that's what you've got to do. You as the leader, you have to showcase by your ability to direct people in a positive way that we can beat so-and-so, and here's the reason we're going to beat them. And then have the game plan and then try to execute it, and then also as an element of luck. I get it. So that's what you want to do as far as in March Madness. You just have to play. If we like example, Spence, the reason why the playing tournament in the NBA is important, here's the reason why, is that most times is that in the playing tournament, usually it's a team that's up and coming, and they fight and claw to be the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th seed. And so even though they might get knocked out in the first round of playoffs, it's still playoff intensity where you have to win that game. You win the play-in series game, or either one game or two games, basically you're seeding. So it does matter. And that's what you want to do. You want to have your younger fellows on your team play in an atmosphere where it's what? There's no tomorrow. Literally, you lose, you're out. And that's the beauty of March Madness. That's the play-in tournament. And then the big bad NBA, Spence.
BYU will take on the winner of NC State, Texas. Texas was the last team to make the NCAA tournament. The committee chair said that to the CBS panel. NC State and Texas played earlier this year in Maui. Texas won that game. And then they'll see Gonzaga. But it was announced that Braden Huff will miss the first and the second round, their big kid. What do you think BYU is made to do in this tournament?
I think they're going to get to the Sweet 16. I think.
All right.
I like it. I like them. The advancer, they're going to double team them. They're going to show box and ones, Spence. They're going to show triangle and two, / meaning what? Junk defenses. But he's ready for it. And that they've got to give the ball to him in space. And so if I'm his teammates, even if it's a broken play, Spence, I'm going to set a quick, I guess so technical, a quick screen for him, and then we call it a go screen, and get out of it to try to give him some daylight to make them switch on defense. And if I was him, sometimes, Spence, I post up, not initially, but during the course of a game. There's a lot of times when they double team you can't get the ball, but I call it a running post up, slide the mid block, and then give them the ball. So suddenly you're a one bounce elevation player, so they can't double team you that quickly then. They know that. And Kevin Young's a smart coach, so they're going to give different looks to the opposition to get AJ in open floor and in space. And then Spence, all the other players on BYU, you've got to make open jump shots. What an awful feeling when your ball swing on perimeter and you're wide open. You miss like 6 straight open shots. It's demoralizing. So you've got to be ready to be catch ready and shot ready.
Give Jazz fans the names of players that you think they should be watching. I mean, look, there's just not a lot to talk about with the Jazz anymore. They played the Sacramento Kings on Sunday. A combined 18 players sat. So, we know what they're going to do the rest of the way, and they're doing that in order to draft one of these young kids. Give us some names, Gordy, for Jazz fans who are going to be tuned into the NCAA tournament to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Kingston Fleming of Houston. The Jazz staring right at him. Keaton Wrangler of Illinois, also Darius Acuff of Arkansas, Nate Emmett from Tennessee, Mikel Brown of Louisville. All those guys should be there. Braden Berrios of Arizona. Those guys should all be there when the Jazz are picking in that range, plus other guys. So a lot of times in March Madness, people emerge where the guy was a good player, but now he becomes part of the national consciousness because he has 3 or 4 or 5 great games. And by the way, Spence, there'll be an upset. There'll be some 12 seed beating a 5 and some 13 seed beating a 4. It always happens all the time, and that is the beauty of it.
All right. Is there anything you're going to be watching for with the Jazz down the stretch, or are most of these players they're playing? Because we've already talked about a lot of the young guys, but for Jazz fans that are just going to watch Jazz basketball, even though the Jazz are going to continue to try to lose to keep the asset, what are some of the dynamics, Gordy, that are actually real that we can watch out for?
Cody Williams. Let's see if he can keep developing. Now, I know that he struggled early to start the season. That's the first premise. But add to that, in the month of March, right, he done much better. He's more with ball confidence, and he is playing with more force and energy. So the month of March, he's averaging 14.1 points per game, 51.9 field goal percentage, 5 rebounds per game, and 4.4 assists. And that's really good. 33.5 minutes per game. And so I want to see him keep developing as far as offensively and making that corner 3. Right now he's a chilly 3-point shooter at only 30.4. Add to that his sidekick, Bryce Sensabaugh. I like him. Even if the Jazz had the whole team all there, I like Sensabaugh because he can score and he's got toughness. So I view him almost like as a Jordan Clarkson type player, where he's instant offense. He's fearless in a good way. He tries to play defense, which is really encouraging. And in the month of March, he's averaging 18.6 points per game, which is really, and 39.3 from threes. And so you get the feeling that he hopefully will keep continuing it. So I'm watching those two guys to see if they can keep developing on both sides of the ball, but especially Cody Williams to really try to continue playing with force and making that corner three.
You know, I found an interesting dynamic when I went down to the arena. Of course, you were there grinding, taking your notes during the Warriors game. I tried to get there early, Gordy, to talk to a lot of people. I hadn't been there in a while, so I was able to catch up with a lot of people on the basketball side, a lot of people on the business side, and, you know, ticketing, marketing, broadcasting. And everybody down there sounds tired and is ready for next season already. What do you think this has been like for everybody? Nobody is enjoying this, even though we understand what they're doing. It feels like it's really been draining for a lot of people.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, the everyday people in the office are trying to. Again, the Jazz are selling hope, but now with the Jazz, as far as what they've done now with their roster, it's more than just hope. They're selling the future. I give them a lot of credit in a sense. Once they committed to this, and by the Jazz making those smart trades at the deadline, getting Jaren Jackson, that tells everybody that's a Jazz fan that the Jazz will be dramatically better next season. So maybe you're tired right now, but there's definitely a ray of hope in the future. Because when all those guys come back off injuries, meaning Larry Markkinen and Jaren Jackson and Walker Kessler, and I'm assuming Keontae George is out for the year. I'm just assuming that with the injury, that they're going to be definitely an improved team next year. I mean, let's not forget, last year the Jazz only won 17 games. Yikes. So the Jazz was 17 and 65. This year, as we speak right now, the Jazz are 20 and 48. So the whole bunch of losing. But next year, hopefully, will be a difference as far as dramatically improvement, both visually and also on the business side as far as the model. Because, you know, winning does affect revenue. And let's not, you know very well, Spence, that money is everything as far as rules in professional sports. And that you've got to give the fans a good product to keep coming.
Well said. We were talking about this with Smitty in studio this week, and I was excited to have you on because I wanted to ask you, every organization is a little bit different as far as the checks and balances and who has final say and how many voices are in the room, and ultimately who decides who will be drafted, who decides who will be traded, who decides who will be signed. Every time Ryan Smith talks about the hierarchy over there, he says the following: Danny will have final recommendation to me. Austin will have final recommendation to me. So it feels like Austin is running basketball ops, but Ryan Smith is the owner. And when you own something, you have the right to do this. There are very few owners that are as front facing about, I will make the final decision, but it's Ryan's right. He owns the team. When you were with Jerry and Phil, and it was Larry and then later Gail, and of course, Scott Layden, Kevin O'Connor, what was that dynamic like as far as how you guys collaborated in order to land on the players you wanted to play for you?
It was a perfect work environment. That's the first thing. Larry Miller, the late, great Larry Miller, it's hard to believe it, but he let us run basketball. Absolutely. He only got involved in the contract at the end of it with the player. So it was definitely the coaches were involved to the ultimate, where the draft situation, we never saw the guys play. So how could the late, great Jerry Sloan, Phil Johnson, my contemporary, and myself, how could we judge somebody if we never saw them play live? We need the college players or the European guys. But we're involved to the ultimate as far as trading for people, because no one knows better than the coaching staff who's good in the NBA. And Spence, I say this all the time. Don't tell me when a guy is good after he's good. Tell me before he's good why he's going to be good. And that's when you've got to understand leap of faith as far as getting certain guys. As far as with your team, meaning your team you work with right now, he'll play much better. And here's the reasons why: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when you evaluate players, you've got to look at them in your system that as a coaching staff, we've got to bring the best out of that player. And most times in Jazz basketball and yesteryear, that happened often. So the Jazz were involved in, Spence, the trades, free agency to the ultimate, but we weren't involved in the draft because we never saw the guys play live. And that's fair. It worked out great. It was a tremendous working environment. Because with your dad, is that the Jazz always drafted 20-something all the time. Like it was, for decades. We always drafted late in the first round. And guess what? They picked the right guy, and hopefully the coaching staff fast-tracked their development to make that guy into a absolutely tremendous player, a la Brian Russell type guys, Shandon Anderson, all those guys, Mehmet Okur type people that had tremendous Jazz careers. They were all picked in the second round.
Let me revisit Ace with you real quick, Gordy, before we move off the Jazz, because, I don't know how much we're going to see him. I feel like there's been enough, data out there available, and his reputation down there is a good kid who likes to work. If he stays healthy, stays humble, puts in the work, what's best case scenario for Ace Bailey?
Hi, all-star someday. Yes, that
love
guy's
it.
Good.
Love it.
Yeah, he's good. I love about him is that he plays with a joy, and he tries to do the right thing. So here's the question with Ace, if I was counseling him. How can I showcase my individual talent with my dribble drive game, either for the long ball, meaning three, or the mid-range pull-up, and get to the glass offensively within the team game? So if I was counseling him, is that it's pretty simple, is that you look to go organized one-on-one on the second side of the floor. On the first side of the floor, when you come down to early offense or in a set play, meaning a dead ball, then you're trying to execute what the play is. But after the first two options, then it becomes what we call organized freelance. And that's a great time for you to go one-on-one, but please, in the meantime, don't over-dribble. Because most young fellas always over-dribble because they forget that they're playing with other guys on the court. But as you evolve as a player and as a team keeps progressing as far as wins, that's when you really realize that the less I dribble, the more eventually our team will score. And that's when that simple thing where you sacrifice just an element of that possession for the betterment of the group.
All right, away from the Jazz, I've got a question for both conferences. Let's start in the East, Gordy. How many teams do you think realistically can win the Eastern Conference this year?
4. Cavs, Knicks, Celtics, Pistons.
Okay. Do you have a
Max Strus, that guy had a broken foot, didn't play until the other day.
Yep.
He gets in the game. His first game since last summer. He's probably playing at Venice Beach in California. He gets in the game with the Cavs off the bench. He makes his first 4 threes. And so now they get a knockdown shooter, Max Strus, which ironically also, just as a side note, was undrafted at DePaul. So here's a guy, I'm talking about him, who's undrafted, 7 years ago, and now I'm praising him. But I like the Cavs, I like the Knicks, I like the Celtics, and I like the Pistons. However, no one's dominant, including the Pistons. I know you could be world champions and still not be a perfect team. Because remember, the other guys are good you play against.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now out west, Gordy, it's a little deeper, but it's a little more elite at the top. How many teams do you think can actually come out of the West this year?
3. Nuggets, Spurs, and Thunder.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Laker fans. I know. I love SoCal, but I don't think they have enough right now as far as their bench. I know in playoff games you play the guys 37 minutes. I understand that, but you need a bench also. So I love the Nuggets. They've hung in there so much with so many injuries. The brilliance of Jokic and Jamal Murray. The Spurs are absolutely sensational, even though they're somewhat inexperienced. And then the Thunder are the world champions. Now, let's not forget, is that the metrics tell us that the last 7 years, there's been 7 different NBA champions. So no one's repeated. So the question is, Spence, do you believe that it's going to happen this year, or it's going to be the 8th year of a different world champion?
What's the Gordy Chiesa SoCal experience like? Are you on the beach? Are you hanging out? Are you playing golf? What do you do when you're in SoCal?
No, on the beach. No, on the beach, watching all the surfers and stuff.
There you go.
I'm like a wannabe. You know what I mean? Like I want to be surfer. I want to be. But I'm in the water, yes.
All right, we've talked about both conferences. Now let's move over to this. How many teams do you think realistically can win the NBA championship?
Five.
Let's hear it.
Five. There would be Celtics, Pistons, Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets.
You throw Detroit in there,
so it's
huh?
going to be good. It's good. There's nothing like it. The NBA playoffs, it is, let's say, Spence, it's rather intense, if you know what I mean, and that every possession does matter. And by the way, please don't take a wild three-point shot because you feel like it, because what happens is that it affects the possession. And in playoff basketball, every time down the court, whether it's early offense, whether it's high-tempo offense, whether it's like dead ball, you've got to respect the possession. And that's what good playoffs team do. And they get the ball to their star players in the fourth corner in space to make a play. What's the play? I don't know. All I know is that the star player has the ball. He's going to do something that's tremendous to help himself score or a team get to the basket, and someone else is going to score a two-point shot or a three-point shot.
Gordy, great stuff as always. Of course, before I set you loose, we got to hear the list. You always bring a list to us. We'll end on this. What's that list today?
All right, list today is March Madness, the most Final Four appearances by schools. The most ever in the Final Fours by schools. I cut it off at 6. So these schools have been to the Final Four 6 times. They are Villanova, Syracuse, Oklahoma State, Michigan, Florida Gators, including last year, University of Cincinnati, University of Arkansas. These two teams have been in the Final Four 7 times in their tradition. University of Houston, which was last year also, and UConn. The next two teams have done it 8 times in the Final Four. They are University of Louisville and Indiana University. The next two teams have done it 10 times, Ohio State and Michigan State. The next team has done it 16 times, Kansas University. Next team had been to the Final Four 17 times, University of Kentucky. The next two teams are tied for the second most ever, UCLA and Duke. They've been to the Final Four 18 times. And the number one university that's been to the Final Four is the Tar Heels of North Carolina, university. They've been to the Final Four 21 times in their history. What about the Utes? Utah Utes have been to the Final Four 4 appearances quickly. 1944, 1961, 1966, and with Spence, you were in school in 1998. It's hard to believe right now, but the Utes were in a Final Four where they played great, led by these 3 standouts. We all know their names: Andre Miller, Mike Doliak, and the present Utah Utes coach, Alex Jensen. Thus, that's my list of the day. And speaking of the Utes, Spence, they haven't been to March Madness in the NCAA tournament in 10 years now, since 2016, when their standout player was DeLon Wright.
Hard to believe, Gordy, but great stuff as always, my friend. Thank you for the time today. We'll set you loose. Be well, okay?
Thanks, Spence. Peace out.
The legend, Gordy Chiesa. 10 years, man. It's been a decade since Utah was in the NCAA tournament. All right, our friends at IFA Country Store want to help you get your lawn ready. IFA Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and Lawn Food gives your turf a strong start for months of thick emerald grass that will leave your neighbors green with envy. Provides a fast green up and helps your grass build up the energy it needs. And it defends against weeds. Only at IFA. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Coming up next, an interesting soundbite out of Ann Arbor today from Kyle Whittingham. We'll play it for you, then we'll get into it. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, we got Tim McMahon joining us today, NBA Daily Assist style. I'm going to help you fill out your brackets with Ken Pomeroy. A little bit later on, then a college basketball legend, played for Stanford, almost played at Utah. Casey Jacobson will join us. Had a fun morning this morning up at the Eccles Center, the Eccles Football Center, to catch up with Morgan Scalley and the Utah coaches. And the players were hanging out, eating well in the cafeteria. Always fun to see them. Beautiful day, too, so that made it even better. As spring football is here. BYU's been at it for a couple weeks, but not just at Utah. Spring football is going on around the country. All right, look, let me set this up. And I'm not 100% sure why, which makes this that's what makes this interesting, okay? Apparently, Jay Hill said to some Michigan media members that the Kyle Whittingham defensive scheme is the most complex in the country, or something like that. Something along those lines. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing is interpreted and how people kind of talk about it. So the media member, when it's Kyle's turn to address the gathered media, said to him, and we'll play it, your defensive coordinator said you run the most complex scheme in the country. And Kyle says, wait, Morgan said that? And then started to get a little bit defensive and said, I can't really comment on his comments. We've simplified it. Anyway, it was never brought around that he was being asked about a comment that was made by Jay Hill, and Kyle just assumed that the comment was made about Morgan Scalley, which I'm not 100% sure as to why, but you know what? Let's just roll. Let's hear the sound.
Dennis?
Yeah, Dennis 15 again. You said that with the last 3 years you've simplified some things. Your defensive coordinator said that he runs the most complicated scheme in all of college football. How long?
Morgan said that? Okay.
Yeah, well, how long do you think it's going to take to put that in? And was he just,
Well, Jay Hill, our coordinator here, is, it's like I don't want to say a cult, but it all started with my father. The defensive schemes that we run, that were run at BYU, and it's all kind of offshoot. And the starting point and the origination was brought to Utah by my father in 1993, and it's I don't want to say complicated, but there's some moving parts to it. But again, things have been simplified, and if you don't, you're going to have a hard time functioning because you just can't get these guys ready to play soon enough. And so I don't know any more comment about his quote, but I know here it'll be, guys be able to plug in and get things done right away. So if that makes sense.
Okay.
We got time for a few more.
So a few different angles here. I'm going to put on my Dr. Freud hat. I'm going to put on my psychologist hat here.
Dr. Phil.
Sure, doctor, that's fine. I wish I had a good Dr. Phil impersonation, but I do not. We'll leave that to Frank Caliendo.
We'll be right back.
A couple of things. Why do you think Kyle said Morgan said that? That's number one. Why do you think he assumed that he was being asked about something Morgan said when he was asked about something that his current defensive coordinator said?
Yeah, not his coordinator anymore. That's a good question. I'm not sure. It was Jay Hill, by the way, on a Michigan-centric podcast that quote is coming from.
See, it's odd because, of course, it was Jay Hill. The media member asked him about something his current defensive coordinator said.
Right.
But Kyle was ready to kind of react at it in a way that was a little bit defensive, if you know wit, and seemed to be a little frustrated or upset that Morgan was not the one who said it, but Kyle, for some reason, assumed Morgan was the one who said it and then decided to respond in a way that was just a little bit prickly. I mean, and then the other interesting dynamic here is why didn't the media member, when Morgan
clarify?
Yeah, when Kyle said Morgan said that, why did you think the media member didn't know who Kyle was talking about?
Right.
Maybe.
I mean, if you're asking that question, you should probably follow up and be like, no, that's not who said that. I don't know. I struggle because with Kyle, especially in these settings, I hesitate to think that he's like taking a question personally, because he just doesn't like doing that. I don't know if you watched, that's a 20-plus minute press conference, and the constant through it all, even beyond that question about Jay Hill, was a little prickly. He is like the most no BS, no nonsense, non-answers, coach speak that you could get out of a 20-minute press conference. It's what we're used to with Kyle. So I sometimes hesitate to zero in too much on one question, because it really is just his routine, man.
See, the other question is this, though. If he knew, if it clicked in his mind that he was being asked about something Jay said, would he have handled it differently?
I don't know. I don't know that it's any different, because we're talking about the same defense. We're talking about, and as Kyle alluded to, this is a system that came from Fred, Big Wit, and is used by Kyle, is used by Morgan in many ways, is used by Jay Hill and many others, to be clear. And I wonder if maybe Kyle was more prickly because he's just been asked about that same thing so often, and maybe he doesn't think it's so complex. And at the same time, yes, there has been a shift from Kyle over the last 3 or 4 years where you can't really, you don't have these guys in your locker room for 4 years. You don't have them in your locker room for even 2 or 3 years on most cases. So you can't teach them that defense. And I wonder if that is what he's more frustrated with, is that he's dealing with a lot of instant gratification in today's world of college football, where he can't really teach his defense because it's not something that you can really grasp in a single season, off season, before you send those guys out there.
Dial that back up again. I want to listen to that one more time. Okay, let's go full Zapruder film breakdown back and to the left to see exactly really what we can find here. So play that one more time, and let's kind of dig in a little bit.
Dennis? Yeah, Dennis, 15 again. You said that with the last 3 years you've simplified some things. Your defensive coordinator said that he runs the most complicated scheme in all of college football. How long?
Morgan said that? Okay.
Yeah, well, how long do you think it's going to take to put that in? And was he just,
Well, Jay Hill, our coordinator here, is, it's like I don't want to say a cult, but it all started with my father. The defensive schemes that we run, that were run at BYU, and it's all kind of offshoot. And the starting point and the origination was brought to Utah by my father in 1993, and it's I don't want to say complicated, but there's some moving parts to it. But again, things have been simplified, and if you don't, you're going to have a hard time functioning because you just can't get these guys ready to play soon enough. And so I don't know any more comment about his quote, but I know here it'll be guys be able to plug in and get things done right away. So if that makes sense.
See, that's annoyed wit. That is annoyed wit. I've been doing this long enough, and definitely with him, to know when it's annoyed wit. That was Kyle irritated at the idea that Morgan would call the scheme complex. And also the way that the reporter asked the question, if you notice this, the reporter said, recently you said you've simplified this defensive scheme. Your defensive coordinator just called it the most complex in college football. So the way the reporter set it up was also, well, wait a second, is it simplified or not? Because your defensive coordinator just said it's complex. I just find it so fascinating that even though it was your defensive coordinator, went straight to Morgan, straight to him, and then was clearly frustrated about what he perceived to be different messaging about this simplification process he's professing they've undergone. See, now what what I'd really love to hear is a do-over when Kyle understands it was Jay. That's what I'd love to hear, because I honestly think he would have handled it differently. I think it's pretty fascinating that he instantly said, Morgan said that? Okay. And then boom. That's annoyed wit, Porter. You know that's annoyed wit.
And I think it may, as you kind of alluded to, it may just be this. We're 20 minutes into a press conference in the middle of March, and I'm now being asked about my old school, right?
Even though he wasn't asked about it.
Right.
That's what I find interesting.
Right. Yeah, a little prickly. I'll say the folks in Michigan just need to buckle in and get used to that that type of response from Kyle Whittingham.
Well, I mean, look, he's living in a different world now. Okay, he's not going to be able to get away with some of the things he got away here in Ann Arbor. That's just not how it works. And I say this all the time. I always laugh when I hear a coach here get defensive with the media, because these people are coddled in this market. They have bloggers show up to ask questions who cry after they leave. I mean, they have unserious fans who have credentials to show up and ask them softball questions. And when somebody actually shows up and asks a question, oftentimes they act like babies. It happens with the Jazz all the time. It's happened with our football coaches all the time. Mm-hmm. Part of the job is standing up after a win or a loss and asking questions from media members. And guess what? You're not going to get at Michigan. Coddled. Like, Kyle's going to have to understand this is a different deal now.
I think he does, but he's also still going to be Kyle, right? Like you mentioned, he's not going to be able to maybe get away with some of that stuff, or it might not be as as controlled of an environment. So to me, that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to change. That just means we're going to see maybe some more tense moments like this, but probably more so when we're talking about a loss to a rival in the Big Ten, where Kyle doesn't care to answer to someone at the UMich blog, right? And yeah, it may be a different reaction when you're in Ann Arbor than when you're in Salt Lake, but I don't know that Kyle's necessarily going to change much based on that.
Yeah, he's not going to change much, but I can promise you, if there's a situation where Michigan football, a couple of years ago, what did Witt go 2-7 in conference 2 years ago, 5-7. If Michigan football goes 2-7 in the Big Ten and 5-7 overall, and yes, we all know how hurt that team was and how injured that team was, combined with the clandestine approach of not telling you who's hurt, and combined with the clandestine approach of Cameron Rising is going to warm up but not play, and Brant Keithy's in pads, but it's not going to fly there the way that it was able to fly here. And Kyle earned, quite frankly, a lot of the Teflon stuff as a result of the program he built, how many games that he won. But look, if you think you're going to be able to get away with that in a way that you were able to get away with it here, where you're 2-7 in conference, 5-7 overall, that happens at Michigan, and you start to get surly. And I always say this: when a coach decides to go at the fans, it means he's losing control. I remember when Bronco Mendenhall gave his press conference, where he said something like the BYU fan base, it was something along the lines of the level of criticism is in line with the level of intelligence, or something like that. I remember when I heard that, I'm like, uh-oh, all right, this is getting icy. And I don't want to make more out of that than what it actually is. I just found it really interesting, because as I listened to it for a second time, that is annoyed Kyle. That is what Kyle sounds like when he is annoyed. And why, when asked about his current defensive coordinator, did he instantly assume that he was being asked about his old defensive coordinator? And the way the question was posed, the quote unquote quote given by the defensive coordinator was a contradiction to what Kyle has been saying about a simplification process that he's been trying to execute for his defense. But it was Jay Hill and not Morgan. Kyle directly goes right to Morgan Scalley, and then is very, very annoyed that apparently that's been said. Interesting stuff. We'll catch a break. Before we do, our friends at Advanced Windows have the March Madness window special for you. Go to advancedwindows.com. you save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. And a new thing they're doing is if you don't need 10 windows, they can discount the process, and it's prorated for fewer than 10 windows. Weather's about to get really warm. If your house is hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and you jack up the AC or the heat, you're wasting a bunch of money. So give them a call and get on the schedule. It's our friends at Advanced Window Products, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. Our friend Tim McMahon is our guest coming up next on ESPN 700. The Jazz are off tonight. They're going to take on the Timberwolves tomorrow. Looks like Anthony Edwards is going to miss some time. When last we saw the Jazz, they played the Sacramento Kings, where a combined 18 players sat out that game. And when Craig Bolerjack said Daquan Plowden drives past Bez Meng, I knew that I was in trouble, and I turned the channel. Tim McMahon, NBA Daily Assist. What'd you make of that Kings-Jazz game, buddy?
Didn't make a whole lot of it. Didn't watch a second of it. Don't intend to go back and review it. And I'm just glad that it actually, you know what? I'm lying. I did watch the last few minutes, and I cackled hilariously at DeMar DeRozan's dominant performance that was in a must-lose game for the Kings. I actually did watch a few minutes of that.
I'm impressed because, again, once Bowler started saying names, and I'm like, wait, what? I can remember the main kid from college. 18 combined players sat out that game between the two teams. Is there any reason to watch Jazz basketball the rest of the season?
I mean, hey, Cody Williams, what was his final line in that game, huh? You know, honestly, that is what's so tough about these things. It's like trying to figure out, like, does any of these numbers matter? I mean, like, I remember, you know, like, you can go look at, like, it's usually like last week of April type of box scores, and you will see some hilariously massive box score lines from guys who didn't amount to anything. You know, not saying that Cody Williams won't amount to anything, but I'm just saying I don't know quite what to make of his, you know, whatever it was, like 34, 7, and 7.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I was down at the Warriors game last week, Tim, and Will Hardy did everything within his power to lose that basketball game. I mean, everything within his power. And when Blake Hinson hit the game-winning three, I looked over at Will, and he just was like, what else do you want me to do as it pertains to the way they're going to approach the rest of the season? Look, I don't know what to say about the Cody stuff. When the main guys have been playing, he has looked over his skis. But here's what I wanted to ask you, because when I was down there, I got there early because I wanted to catch up with some people I haven't talked to in a while. Basketball people, front office people, marketing, sales, ticketing, broadcasting, everybody to a person sounded exhausted and all said we're already looking forward to next year. Do you have a pulse on what this process has been like for this entire organization?
I mean, soul draining, I would say. Like, whatever the harshest opposite word of fun would be. You know, like, and like you said, like, not just for the people on the basketball side, but like the business side, you know, it's hard to sell a product when like the goal's not to win. And it's an unfortunate situation. All I can tell you is the light at the end of the tunnel is right there. They're turning the page next year. Will Hardy's going to get to use his brilliant basketball mind for good and not evil. And you know, again, I think they can put together a competitive, you know, put a competitive product on the floor next season. As far as like, why would you watch Jazz basketball the rest of the season? I think if you're like me and you have a sick sense of humor, you know, that's the honest truth. Like I said, I forgot where I was that night. Actually, I do remember. I had a late flight. I got in, and I'm checking the scores, and I see that Kings Jazz was close. I'm like, I got to see this. And honestly, like, what's DeMar DeRozan doing on the floor for the Kings? That's kind of mismanagement, if we're being honest. But DeMar DeRozan, what do you have, like 41 and 10? And, you know, the Kings, it's just such a weird situation. Russ is about to go into, I think, the top 5 on the all-time assist list. DeMar DeRozan is passing legends. He's like 17th or 18th on the all-time scoring list. And they are absolutely abysmal, but they're winning games that have a chance to be very costly for the future of the franchise. While these, you know, mid to late 30-something-year-old guys put up numbers that are historical in terms of the lists they're climbing and completely meaningless in terms of the impact on the league right now.
Yeah, to underscore your point, after being there at the Warriors game and watching Will do everything he could to manipulate the lineup to lose, the only thing that is worth watching is how hilarious it is to see these guys try to lose and maybe at times play too hard and play themselves into a win and watch the reaction. But you brought up Russ. Let me ask you this. There's been conversation over the past week or so. There was an article that came out that felt very agent planted about what a great teammate he is, what a great person he is. I don't know this person at all. He has history here, and a lot of it's not great. And I've been in that arena, and I've heard fans say things that are just not okay. And I've always marveled at like the gall of people to treat some of these players like caged animals. But your interactions with him, what's the truth? What is he like as a teammate and as a person?
Yeah, Russ is not a bad person. I think, Russ has a good soul. I'm not sure Russ is always a great teammate. I think there are certainly examples of him being a great teammate. I think, there's also a reason that despite the fact that he was their sixth man all last season and helped win some games, that the Denver Nuggets were looking forward to getting rid of Russ. And basically told him, hey, you've got a player option, but we really don't want you to pick it up. He's a complicated guy. And he really only knows one way. He has not adapted, which is why he's bouncing from team to team to team to team. He doesn't want to adapt his game. In Russ's eyes, he's Russell Westbrook, future Hall of Famer. Why does he have to adapt? And he's right about he's Russell Westbrook, future Hall of Famer. Like his number will hang in the rafters in Oklahoma City's new arena. That is a certainty. And I don't know that he's gotten the most out of his career though, because of his refusal to adapt and, embrace more of a role. And then personality wise, he's intense, I think is the best way to put it. And if you're on his bad side, it's not a pleasant place to be. But he's also done a lot of very nice things for a lot of people. So, complicated guy for sure.
Let me go back to the Jazz just for a moment. There's nothing all that interesting to discuss the rest of the way, as we've already talked about. Give Jazz fans the general gist of this plan as you know it, draft, summer, and just kind of give us an idea of what you think next year might look like.
Right. So obviously they did free agency with Jaren Jackson Jr. Instead of going in the summer with a ton of cap space and, probably getting used as leverage by Austin Reeves or what have you, they went ahead and made their big move to get Jaren Jackson Jr. The biggest question of the summer, there's just two. One, where do you land in the lottery? Who do you get with that pick? And then the other one we've talked about a lot is what happens with Walker Kessler. And, there's a gap right now between what the Jazz think his value is and what Walker and his agents think his value is. How does that gap get bridged? Does it get bridged? If the answer is no, is it a sign and trade situation where they're getting value for him? What I'll tell you is their plan is to have Walker as their starting center alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. and Larry Markkinen in a huge, versatile front court. Keontae George is going to be obviously a big part of this, their primary playmaker. They think Ace has star potential. They hope that he's going to continue developing and perhaps blossom next year. And then, we'll see again what they give the pick, but they think they can put a competitive team on the floor next season. And, I don't doubt that.
So, breaking news, the West is good and deep and young, and the other organizations are also going to try to win games. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Are you willing to say that you think the Jazz have a chance of being a playoff team? Not a play-in team, but a playoff team?
I mean, I don't like their odds of that next season. I think the Jazz are still on the hunt for a franchise player. I think when you look at the teams in the West that are playoff teams that are top six seeds, they all have franchise players. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's Victor Wembanyama, it's Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant. We can kind of debate that, but the talent obviously is there. Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic. The Jazz don't have that kind of guy. They're searching for that guy. They have some hope that Ace has a chance to develop and blossom into that sort of a player. But that's a big if. Maybe they can get a guy in this draft, especially if they have some lottery luck. But I think if you don't have one of those type of dudes, it's hard for me to say you're going to be a top 16 in the Western Conference.
The recent run of play by the Los Angeles Lakers says what?
Says they're interesting. I think you can make an argument of, hey, if you have Denver on the list of contenders, why would you not include the Lakers? I still don't think I don't think the Lakers can beat Oklahoma City in a series. I don't think that they can beat San Antonio, but that's much more likely. But look, man, the Lakers, LeBron has accepted his place in the pecking order and has been playing awfully well as their third option. They've been playing awfully well with that. I think what they're doing defensively is a lot of smoke and mirrors, but they've been playing well defensively. I question how that holds up in a playoff series where a team really has a chance to, scout it heavily, study it, scheme, game plan, all those kind of things. If you'd asked me a month ago, are the Lakers going to get out of the first round, I'd have said no. I think it's fairly likely at this point. But again, I still think that the Lakers are a farewell LeBron, very productive summer away from being a real threat to win the Western Conference and, therefore be a championship contender.
What does his final act look like, Tim? We have your buddy McMiniman on quite a bit, and so we kick the tires with him on this here or there. But, there's the ownership stuff, right, with the expansion situation. It's been long known that Vegas franchise is something that has been linked to him. Does he keep playing? Does he exit stage left? The final stanza of the LeBron James career arc, what do you think that looks like?
Well, number one, let's just be clear that this is speculation because I'm not sure LeBron knows, and if he does, he surely isn't sharing with me, nor is anybody close to him. So having framed it that way, it's funny because I have said that the majority of people I talk to in the league think it's going to be a reunion with Cleveland and an epic retirement tour. I did just happen to see the Cavaliers, when they came through Dallas over the weekend. And, somebody with the Cavs basically told me, hey, get off of that. And it was interesting because what he said was, if he's not happy being the third option behind Luka and Austin Reeves, why would it be different behind Donovan and James Harden? And it's interesting. It's an interesting point. I would say that, again, he is actually playing well as a third option behind Luka and Austin Reeves at this point. Took a while to get there. But anyway, so I was told, calm down on the Cleveland thing. The other one that's out there is Golden State, which, Cleveland almost certainly have to be a minimum unless there's some sort of sign and trade. Golden State could offer the full mid-level. And, hey, why not go out with his buddy Draymond and, Steph Curry and that whole thing, the Avengers. So anyways, those are the things out there. I mean, the Lakers are putting out there, oh, hey, we still want LeBron to retire as a Laker. I frankly think that's lip service. I would be surprised if he's back in L.A., and it certainly won't be anything close to what he's making this season. I just think it's probably in everybody's best interest to, go ahead and say goodbye this summer.
I agree with that, and Cleveland might be a possibility once they trade Donovan next year prior to the trade deadline because look, man, we are uniquely qualified to handle this situation. I've told you my conspiracy theory is get out from under Garland's money, let Harden's money get off the books. Donovan does not want Cleveland, and when Donovan doesn't want a city, he has certain ways of letting people know. I'm not sure if you remember what happened here a few years ago, Tim.
I do remember that. And it was very, very obvious that he wanted out of Salt Lake City.
Yes, it was.
I don't think this situation is the same. I don't think it's obvious that he wants out of Cleveland at this point. I disagree with you on that. I'm not telling you that, hey, Donovan Mitchell's going to be in Cleveland for the rest of his career. I'm not saying that it's a complete impossibility that, things unfold the way you're saying. He ends up getting traded in the not too distant future. I'm just saying I don't have the vibes that Donovan is desperate to leave Cleveland at this point. I think that you're reaching a little bit on that one.
What's the IPA you like out here? Is it the Elefino IPA? Is that the one you enjoy?
Well, I'll tell you, the simple truth of the matter is I'm not a huge IPA guy, but I like the name because one of my favorite jokes is what do you get when you mix an elephant and a rhino?
Ah, okay.
Elefino.
Yes,
so
indeed.
I will sip on an IPA. I will sip on an Elefino at Red Rocks. I have an Elefino T-shirt actually from Red Rocks Brewery, but I'm not a huge IPA guy. I'm more of a Mexican lager, blonde pilsners, those types. I like my beers, and this makes me good for Utah. I like my beers, in the low fives or under, low fives, high fours.
Perfect market for you. Are you willing to put a couple of Modelo's on the Donovan and Cleveland situation? If Donovan is on the roster after next year's trade deadline, it's on me, and if they trade him, it's on you. Are you willing to do it?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Deal.
That's a deal. And hopefully, I'll probably be covering Oklahoma City in the playoffs. Certainly, that'll be my team that I'm assigned to this season, and hopefully the little Jazzies are good enough to squeeze into a 7 or 8 seed next year, and we can do it during the playoffs.
The little Jazzies. Oh, man, you're going to make some people upset out here. The little Jazzies, he says. Okay. Speaking of Oklahoma City, anytime anybody breaks a record that's held by Wilt, you look at what it is, and this one is one that I think a lot of people would never be broken. 20 points in 120 consecutive regular season games for Shea. Help us put some context on that, Tim.
Yeah, like you said, when you're breaking the record held by Wilt, and before Shea went on this run, the second longest streak was 92 games. That was also by Wilt. The third longest was 79. I think that was Oscar Robertson. Among active players today, Kevin Durant's the only one who's even hit 70 games. And it's just, I think the streak reflects, it kind of epitomizes Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, which is just, he is as consistent as any player, one of the most consistent players in NBA history. As he says, everything in his life is consistent. Certainly his approach, his production. And the other, I think the thing about the streak that he's most proud of is that it's come during a historic stretch of winning for the Thunder. It's at 128 games now, so they are 104 and 24, 103 and 25, something like that. Over 100 wins out of the 128. Now, he actually was held under 20 points 3 times during the playoffs last year, believe it or not. But the fact that the streak sandwich is a championship run is pretty good stuff as well.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. So they have recently. And look, I still think San Antonio's awesome, but Oklahoma City, when they're healthy, they just tend to remind people like, okay, you can talk about San Antonio, you can talk about Detroit. They're 11-1 in their last 12, and that's wins over Minnesota, Boston, Denver twice, the Knicks. Their 1 losses to the Pistons. They beat the Cavs. It's not a hollow 11-1. They've beaten some of the best teams in the NBA, and at times they're smoking them. But they also win close games. I mean, they have figured this thing out. Have they separated themselves, in your mind, from the pack with this recent run?
What's San Antonio's record during that stretch? San Antonio,
good.
I think, has lost 2 games since the start of February.
Yeah, and look, they're awesome, yeah.
And look, the Spurs have, as a group, 0 playoff experience. So the Thunder are rightfully the heavy favorites. The Spurs rightfully have zero fear of Oklahoma City. They've won 4 or 5 games against the Thunder this season. 3 of those, the Thunder were relatively healthy. Victor Wembanyama is unlike anything that we've seen before. I would really like to see Oklahoma City and San Antonio as a Western Conference Finals. I think it's going to end up being one of the great rivalries in NBA history. There's already kind of the seeds to that. And, you need repeated playoff series for a rivalry really to take hold. And I'd like to get that started this season. I don't think it's going to be some kind of cakewalk for Oklahoma City. But last year wasn't a cakewalk. Like Denver took them to 7 games. Surprisingly, the Pacers did. But I agree. OKC's heavy favorites. But it ain't going to be easy. That's all I'll say.
In the East, are you still allowing space for all 4 teams, or has anybody separated themselves as the favorite? I mean, Tatum coming back has to, in my mind, that puts Boston above the other 3. That's just me. What do you think?
Well, the books definitely agree with you. They are the betting favorite. Detroit's hit a lull here. And Detroit I think Detroit's probably another creator away from being the best team in the Eastern Conference. There's just so much offensively on Cade Cunningham, and he had that recent stretch where he saw the Spurs a couple times. He saw the Cavs, and there's a trend of him really struggling against teams that have elite rim protection. So, they were a playoff team last year, but they have not won a playoff series as a group, still a very inexperienced team. I would agree that if you ask me who would I pick to come out of the East, I would agree that it'd be Boston.
So the story about expansion, Tim, now, every single night we do this, every single show we do this, there are 8 games tonight. 4 feature 2 teams trying to win. 4 features at least 1 team not trying to win. With how diluted the product feels, is expansion really a good idea? Look, I understand. I'm a grown-up. I know how capitalism works. I know the deal, okay? But when it comes to a on-court product, I'm not sure that I think it's a great time for it. Tell me what you're hearing around the league.
Look, as you said, these are financial decisions being made. Now, having said that, I don't think that the issues with the product is a lack of talent. I know that's not the issue with the product. The issues with the product is an incentive structure that puts teams in a position like the Jazz have been in, where losing is your best strategy. There's talent enough to have 32 NBA teams. Some of these jokes of games that we're seeing right now isn't because there's not enough NBA caliber players. It's because teams are tanking. Those are 2 different issues. So the expansion, it seems like it's going to happen. That's good business for the NBA. The most important business issue for the NBA, though, is to figure out the tanking thing that really screws up their product and makes it hard to watch and hard to enjoy and completely turns off fan bases for sometimes years at a time.
All right, before I set you loose, we had Gordy Chiesa join us this week, and he said Con Knipple is Rookie of the Year, not Cooper Flagg. What say you?
I can't listen. I'm not going to knock somebody who has Con Knipple as the Rookie of the Year. The guy's leading the league in 3-pointers made, averaging about 20 points on really, really strong efficiency and impact and winning for a Charlotte team whose midseason turnaround has been one of the really cool stories in the NBA this season. And hey, Cooper Flagg's got to finish strong to put himself in a position. Having said that, what he's done is also he's doing historic things for a teenager. He's done some things as a teenager nobody's ever done before, and really the only comp for him in terms of teenage production are 2 guys that I'm in Houston right now. I saw last night. I'll see again tomorrow night. LeBron James and Luka Doncic. I mean, he's in pretty strong company. And, if it's close, do you go by who's the guy that you think is going to have the best career? I don't know if that can be a factor in the rookie of the year race. But I'll tell you this, nobody in the league is saying that they would rather have Colin Knippel on their team. Having said that, it's rookie of the year, who had the best rookie season. So I'm not gonna argue with anybody who's got Colin Knippel number one on their ballot.
Tim, great stuff. Glad you're back at it. Travel safe, and we'll get you back soon, okay?
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. The great Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN, covers the Utah Jazz when they're a team that needs to be covered. Maybe that'll happen next year. All right. March Madness is here. You want to win $1 million? We'll go fill out a bracket on our website. One bracket, $1 million, the ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM $1 million bracket challenge is live now. Sign up today on ESPN700sports.com. That is brought to you in part by Big Willie's, Game Day Men's Health, Intermountain Bobcat, Budweiser, the Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Burger Fusion, and the Utah RV Super Show. Speaking of which, I will be there coming up on Thursday, the Utah RV Super Show. It is March 19th through the 22nd at the Mountain America Expo Center. Largest RV selection in the state, newest models, remaining inventory from the year. You're going to find Class A, B, and C motorhomes, travel trailers, fifth wheels, tent trailers, and campers. Dealers attending the show bring some of the best pricing and special offers of the season. Ideal time to purchase an RV or upgrade from your current one. $10 for adults. Kids 12 and under are free. Coupons can be found on the website, which is UtahRVSupershow.com. They'll preview next year's models as well, so you can check out the latest technology and design trends. Celebrating outdoor lifestyle and family adventures. Put your phones down, turn the TV off, and go explore the new RVs. March 19th through the 22nd at the Mountain America Expo Center. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We'll switch gears from pro basketball to college basketball. We will help you fill out your brackets next with the legend himself, Ken Pomeroy. And then Casey Jacobson, a great college basketball player for Stanford, now does some college basketball broadcasting. He'll join us, and we'll get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. And we will say goodnight at 6 on a Tuesday drive. Keep it here on ESPN 700. If Ken Pomeroy chose this song, I'll allow it. If you went rogue, you need to be better. Okay, what's the deal? Did you go
Plead
rogue?
the Fifth.
You went rogue and chose this?
I love this song.
That says all I need to know about you, young man. Porter Larson producing the show today. We've got Casey Jacobson joining us coming up in a bit. Little known fact, Casey Jacobson was almost a Ute. Almost played for Rick Majerus. But kids, listen up. It's my bracket, okay? So get your brackets out. You have them in front of you? Because Ken Pomeroy is about to pick a perfect bracket on the show, aren't you, Ken? How are you, buddy?
That's my favorite thing to do, Spence, is pick the bracket. Pick the perfect bracket.
I know. Now, just for context, because there are a lot of listeners who watch zero college basketball but have been asked by a bored nephew or an unemployed uncle to fill out a bracket, or they have to do it at work. Just let's remind everybody what an exercise in futility this actually is.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weighted lottery, basically. So that's what makes it fun, and that's what gives you. It makes it fun if you don't know anything, because you can pretty much, if you understand how seeds work, and lower numbers are better than higher numbers, you can probably compete with the person in your office who knows a lot about college basketball.
Do you fill out a bracket at all? I mean, we ask you to do it just for, the show and entertainment purposes, but are you in a family bracket? Do you fill one out with your buddies? Do you even do that?
I do not. I do not. I'm willing to play along with the bit for entertainment purposes, but really what it comes down to is my ratings are my bracket. People are going to judge me on how the ratings hold up. And so that's it. I don't know that I can provide any additional expertise beyond what is contained on my website. And so that's my philosophy on that.
Let's start with the website. Okay. So go to kenpom.com right now. I've got mine in front of me. Okay. So kenpom.com. Walk us through the best way to use your rankings in order to fill out a bracket.
Yeah, so I mean the overall ratings are like the 90% of your baseline. Like they're going to give you the best idea of which teams are best. But kind of boring to always pick the better team in the ratings. So it gives you a guide of what upsets might be realistic and what aren't. I mean, I would encourage people to pick some upsets because that makes it more interesting. But don't pick the 15 seed over the 2 seed. That's extremely unlikely to happen, and the odds of you guessing when it's going to happen are remote.
Yes, they are. So what's the difference? So for somebody who goes to kenpom.com right now, let's talk about the deal that you have available for them and what a subscriber gets that someone who just pulls up the website does not get.
Yes, great question. So the deal is you give me $24.95, and I give you access to my website for the next 12 months. So it's not just like a tournament deal. You go to a lot of these websites and it's like it's a March special or whatever. No, this is for 12 months. You'll get it for all of next season as well. And what you get is breakdowns of every team in the tournament, or not in the tournament for that matter. If you want to look at how the Utes did this year and what they did well and didn't do well, you are free to do that. But for most people, they're going to be interested in, the teams in the tournament. And, you get a breakdown of what they do well offensively and defensively. You get a really neat peek at their schedule. And then you also get a breakdown of player stats, among others of, dozens of other interesting features. But it's just the detailed breakdown for each team, I think, presented in an organized way that's not overwhelming, and there's not a lot of esoteric stats necessarily on there, but they're all possession-based stats, so it's going to be the most accurate information about each team.
So go to kenpom.com right now, and you'll see the spot that'll have you sign up, and then you'll see his rankings, and let's kind of dig into a little bit. I'll start here. You referenced, the upsets are fun, right? And it's fun to try to figure out what lower seed is going to advance. But when it comes to like the Elite Eight and the Final Four and the final game of the national champ, the chances are rather overwhelming that it's going to be a top 2 or 3 seed. Yes?
Yeah, that is correct. This year's going to be an interesting test case because we're following up on last year where it was one of the chalkiest tournaments in history. Like the top 8 teams in my ratings heading into the tournament made the Elite Eight. The top 4 teams made the Final Four. Those were the 4-1 seeds. It wasn't like I had some sort of like secret formula there. The top seeds were really strong last year. And guess what? They're really strong again this year. I doubt all the 1 seeds are going to get to the Final Four again. I mean, the chances of that even last year, are somewhere in the 4 to 5% range. So, it's happened twice in history, kind of consistent with that 4 to 5% number. I seriously doubt it will happen again, but there are going to be people in your bracket that pick all 4 1 seeds because those teams are really clearly the best teams heading into the tournament.
Most likely team that is not a 1 or a 2 seed to make a Final Four and maybe win a national championship?
I think I would pull the trigger on Illinois if I had to go there. They are coming out of the region. I think it's the South region, but it has Florida. It has Houston in there, it has Vanderbilt. It's actually, I think the most interesting region of the 4. Florida's the weakest 1 seed. Houston's a strong 2. Illinois is a strong 3. Vanderbilt's a strong 5. I believe Nebraska is in there as a 4. So it's a pretty wide open region, but Illinois as the 3 is intriguing because for most of the season, they've had the top-rated offense in the country. It did drop to number 2 after the Big Ten tournament, but their offense is pretty outstanding. And generally, if you're going to hitch your wagon to kind of a Cinderella run, not that we necessarily call Illinois a Cinderella team, but what we're saying here. An upset, an unusual team to get to the Final Four or win the title, as we're talking about. You would like to hitch your wagon to the team with the great offense as opposed to the great defense, just because this time of year defense is hard. It's hard for defense to be consistent. Players are shooting their best. They're in their best form. So offense tends to get better as the season goes on. And Illinois maxes that out. Their offense is, one of the best.
If I expand the question, I guess the answer here is going to be Vandy based off your rankings. If I took the top 4 seeds off the table, most likely team to make a run, Final Four, win a championship, is the answer to that Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you take a look at the ratings, we got Vandy, we got Tennessee, we got Louisville, Texas Tech, St. John's. I mean, that's the group of teams. We know Texas Tech is missing one of their best players in JT Toppin. St. John's, I'm not super enamored with. Tennessee is kind of an intriguing pick. I mean, Rick Barnes has been to the Final or the Elite Eight the last 2 years, never been to the Final Four, but his tournament results have gotten markedly better later in his career. But I do like Vandy. I mean, they're coming off, an SEC tournament where they lost in the final to Arkansas, obviously, but they beat Tennessee and Florida to get there. Started the season 16-0. We're kind of a darling pick at that point to, be a Final Four team or be a 2 seed or something like that. And then, the rest of the SEC schedule didn't go quite as well. And I think people are off the case a little bit, but pretty well-rounded team. Another team with a really solid offense. And I could see them. I mean, we just saw them beat Florida by 17 points. So if they get matched up with Florida in the Sweet 16, obviously they're capable of winning that game.
Gordy Chiesa hopped on earlier and gave us his Final Four. And it was Duke. It was Houston. I think it was Arizona. The one team that kind of caught me off guard, I want to ask you about Arkansas. Gordy has Arkansas advancing to the Final Four. And your rating has them right there with the other 4s, right? They're right behind Nebraska, ahead of Alabama, and Alabama's got a kid that's in a lot of trouble. You got Kansas all the way at 21. Tell me your thoughts on the potential of Arkansas making a bit of run here with John Calipari.
There's some potential there. Yeah, it's kind of, I guess, an interesting world we live in now where people are trusting John Calipari to go to the Final Four, where I feel like during his entire tenure at Kentucky, people doubted him. And I'm not, like you said, they're kind of like the other 4 seeds, and I'm not super sold on Arkansas being a team that can get past Arizona. But there's a lot to like about Darius Acuff, who's their freshman, nominally their freshman point guard, but just a really good scoring guard. And in this year of the freshmen, there's so many talented freshmen out there. Acuff has kind of been playing in a bit of obscurity, and he's closed the season strong, but he's been strong all year. I mean, a guy who shoots, 45% from the 3-point line, but can also get to the rim and draw fouls without committing a lot of turnovers. Like he's a magical player. I think that storyline that, games are won in the tournament, by superstar players. I mean, there aren't that many examples of that. The best teams tend to be more complete and have 3 or 4 options offensively and not be the team that has to go through one guy. The scouting in the tournament is just too precise and intense to, not make life very difficult for Darius Acuff.
Get into some local stuff, and then maybe you can give us some upset alerts based off your rankings, or you think might have a chance to advance to do something. So I have a 2-part question. BYU lands on the 6th line. Feels like that was about right. Now, they get a couple of wins in the tournament. They beat Tech and Provo on senior night, and then they play Houston pretty well. So I want your thoughts on BYU as a 6. And then tonight we are going to see NC State and Texas. And this is interesting. You have NC State at 34 and Texas at 37. So they're very closely rated in your rankings. They played earlier this year, but that was way back, I think, in November in Maui. So give me your thoughts on BYU seed, and do either NC State or Texas make them nervous?
I think BYU seed was fair. I mean, I think they're playing to a 6 seed right now. And you look at the season-long accomplishments, going 9-9 in the Big 12. Like, it makes sense to me that they were a 6 seed. So hopefully no complaints about that. And yeah, I mean, the Texas NC State game should be fairly entertaining. I mean, these are 2 very flawed teams. Yeah, you mentioned them playing earlier in the year to a 102-97 score. And that was no fluke. Like, both of these teams are good on offense and indifferent on defense. And that should lead to a high-scoring game. We're not going to see 102-97 tonight, but my machine is forecasting 83-82. So as NCAA tournament games go, that would be quite high-scoring. Both of these teams are just, careening into the NCAA tournament. I think Texas has lost like 5 of 6, and NC State's lost 7 of 9. So I don't know that, I don't think either of these teams should scare BYU. I also don't think BYU's at the point right now where, it's like, oh, let's just move them on to the second round. Like, obviously, both of those teams, whoever wins is going to be coming off a win, first of all, and they can challenge. I mean, it should be a good game, whoever ends up getting matched up with BYU. I do think, BYU should win that game. They're a more complete team. And, again, the lack of defense by both of those teams, I think, is particularly mouthwatering for an offense that is, particularly dependent on one guy. Like, DeBonta should be able to go off on either team, and we know that so much of BYU's fortunes right now depend on that happening.
Jared Calhoun was unhappy with his seed, and according to your rankings, he's got a beef. So I want your thoughts on Utah State on the 9 line. You have him at 30, and then you have Villanova at 33, which is really interesting. Utah State is a slight favorite in Vegas. Well, I guess we don't say that anymore. Utah State is a slight favorite on your literal phone. So your thoughts on their seed and your thoughts on the matchup they have coming up against Villanova.
I was surprised that Jared Calhoun was so upset with the seed, honestly. Like, they could have been an 8. I think if you looked at most bracket forecasts, they were that 8-9 range, and whether you're an 8 or a 9 makes zero difference. So based on what they accomplished over the course of the season, I mean, I think everybody seemed to agree, like they were in that range. I mean, if you go by predictive measures, yeah, they might have been a little more deserving of maybe a 7, but that's not how the seeds historically work. There's a little bit of attention given to predictive measures, but it's mostly based on your accomplishments. And so, yeah, I just don't understand the angst towards, who cares if they're a 9 or a 7 or an 8. But having said that, this game against Villanova, I feel like is like perhaps the best game of the first round. I mean, really, two teams that should be pretty competitive and produce some good drama. Yeah, a lot of respect for them getting favored. I mean, honestly, that was it's a little surprising to me that they are favored. I know they're favored on my site, but historically, the Mountain West obviously has not performed well in the NCAA tournament. We know that, with the exception of San Diego State, and typically the point spreads reflect that. So, really, a lot of respect given to Jarrett Calhoun's team this year, and I've pretty much said all along, I think this could be the best Utah State team that they've had, maybe going back to the Spencer Nelson days or something like that. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens here because obviously being able to go and beat a Big East team in the first round would really be a huge step forward for the program.
And obviously, seeing Arizona round 2 feels like a bit of a pipe dream. Can they put up a fight? Can they make it close?
Yeah, it's hard to see a path forward there. Can they make it close? I think they can make it close. Arizona's so tough, man. It's like I just can't tell you how impressive it is for them, like, to have performed as well as they have this season, especially offensively, by basically not shooting 3-pointers. Like, it's one thing to be a middle-of-the-road power conference team doing that, but to be one of the best teams in the country without really much perimeter attack is extremely impressive. Like, it's not a fluke, and I've been telling people all week, if you're like a 6 seed, right? You don't want that profile of not shooting threes. You want to shoot a lot of threes, really, because that's how you can fake being a 1 or a 2 seed on a particular night if you're making your threes. But if you're in a position like Arizona, you don't want to be relying on the 3-pointers because if they're not falling, you can get upset. So I'm not saying Arizona's upset proof, but they're definitely a more consistent team than a Michigan, for instance. Like, I think that's been obvious all year. So yeah, I don't know what we mean by keeping it close. It could be a single-digit game, but I just feel like it's going to be one of those games where last 5 minutes, you know who the better team is.
Let's go back to BYU. If they get past round 1, they will take on Gonzaga most likely in round 2. It was announced that Braden Huff is not going to play round 1 and round 2. So they're going to run into Gonzaga without Braden Huff. It's weird. He was thought to be out 4 to 6 weeks. It's been 8. And he's a really good player, so of course they're going to be careful bringing him back. But Gonzaga without Braden Huff against BYU, what do you think that could look like?
I still give an edge to Gonzaga, but yeah, no Braden Huff certainly helps. I mean, the thing is, like, he's been out for a while now, and the absence of Braden Huff allowed their freshman Davis Fogel to jump into the lineup and get a lot of minutes. And the thing about Fogel was he was basically a guy who only played in garbage time early in the season, and he was putting up these like ridiculous numbers. And it was like, why? On some other team, this guy would be playing a lot. And then Huff went down, and they were forced to play Fogel. And sure enough, he's been pretty awesome. Like, those numbers he was putting up in garbage time, you just maybe thought, well, those are just, that's just stuff you do against opponents who have checked out of the game. But he's been really awesome. And so obviously Gonzaga would love to have a healthy Braden Huff, but there's, Davis Fogel has provided really a nice boost for them, and they're not that much worse without Huff at this point. So, yeah, the nod there goes to Gonzaga, but this isn't, a Gonzaga team of 2 or 3 years ago. It's a team that's a little bit flawed. They struggle to score. The offense goes through Graham Ike, who is efficient, but he's efficient in the sense that he's, scoring twos. Like he's not, scoring 2 points a possession versus the potential to score 3 points a possession makes a difference. And any team that plays through the post like Gonzaga does, unless you're doing it as efficiently as Arizona is, it's hard to really, generate that elite offense.
LJ Kaysen out for Michigan. And St. Louis is like this sneaky team, aren't they? So is Michigan susceptible to going out early, in your opinion, without LJ Kaysen? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think LJ Kaysen is that big of a deal. He gives them a little depth, but to me, not really a factor, right? Like, coming off the bench, wasn't a starter. Most value is on the defensive end. Not a huge contributor offensively. So I think Michigan's fine in that sense. It's just, as I mentioned earlier, that the inconsistency, they're just a little more inconsistent than you might think, considering, they only lost 3 times all year. They are susceptible to being scared, let's say, by lesser opponents in a way that Duke or certainly Arizona is not. And so that's the issue there. So, yeah, I mean, if St. Louis ends up playing them, I think it could be an interesting game. St. Louis is just a really fundamentally sound offense, I guess I would say, like buying into, modern concepts in terms of avoiding mid-range shots, getting to the rim, and taking threes. It'll be an interesting contrast if that matchup does occur, because Michigan is huge, and their best trait is really preventing teams from getting to the rim. So is St. Louis forced to take a bunch of tough threes? If that's the case, it could be a long night. But if they can, space the defense enough and expand their range on threes, then there will be some shots at the rim, I think. And, it could be an interesting game for a while.
All right, let's move over to first-round upsets, Kent, that you like. Let's have a little fun with our listeners, and I'll just let you go whatever direction you'd like. If you want to go 13-4 and get weird, 12-5, 11-6, whatever you want to do. Some first-round upset specials.
Well, one of the themes of certainly last year's tournament was there were very few upsets. And, this year's tournament looks similar just in terms of the structure of the dominance of the top teams, but even the separation really between the 5 and 12 seeds. Like, used to be you could pick, the spread between 5 and 12 was pretty small, and you could feel comfortable picking a 12 seed, but that's not the case anymore. I guess one situation to watch is with Alabama, who appears to have lost one of their guards with an arrest with some marijuana possession, although it's a little more marijuana than one would normally possess. And so Aiden Holloway may or may not be playing for Alabama. And Alabama is a guard-heavy team, has one of the best backcourts in the game. Not much in the front court, but really good backcourt. Losing him would be pretty bad, pretty harmful. And so Alabama's playing Hofstra in a 4-13 game. Hofstra coached by Speedy Claxton for the NBA heads out there. And they love to kind of slow the game down and grind it down. This game is already shaping up to be a really fun kind of contrasting styles, but that's a game that I probably would, if you're gonna pull the trigger on an upset for a 13 seed or higher, that's the one I would really eye, because that is going to be it could be a serious problem for Alabama if they do not have Aiden Holloway.
Yeah, let's be clear, Ken. I'm a believer in free will, but 2.1 pounds of marijuana seems like a lot of marijuana for a young man to be carrying around. So.
He insists it was for personal use, Spence. So we'll just, let's let the legal system play out.
Oh, look, no judgment. I mean, do whatever helps you sleep at night. But when I saw the report that my man was sporting 2.1 pounds of pot around in a backpack before the tourney, I'm like, maybe not the best judgment. All right, before I set you loose, give me a couple thoughts on the games tonight. UMBC Howard and then Texas NC State. Who do you like in these games and why?
Well, they both should be good games. If you're down for watching some 16 seeds, I mean, personally, I'm not going to pretend like I've been watching a lot of UMBC or Howard this year, but Howard is one of the best teams that the MEAC has produced in a few years, and yeah, it should just be a really competitive game, more low scoring than the nightcap, which will be potentially more entertaining than any of those first round games. There'll be people who are against expanding the tournament or want to go back to 64 teams. I would just say you would deprive yourself of NC State, Texas, which, hey, if you don't want to watch it, that's fine, no judgment. But if you're just sitting around late tonight and looking for some good single elimination hoops, like that's going to be a really fun game played by two imperfect teams, but that's college basketball, and I would go Texas in that game, but again, going to be just a really fun up and down high scoring game with limited defense. So if you're worried about people getting in the stands and fundamentals, maybe you can sit this one out. But otherwise, if you're just looking for fun up and down basketball, you will be entertained.
And who do you like in the early one again?
I will go with Howard. Love me some Kenny Blakeney, the head coach of Howard.
There you go. All right, Ken, again, it's your time of year. Hit the deal, hit the website. Where can people go?
They can go to kenpom.com and sign yourself up for a subscription tonight, and you'll get 12 months of college basketball data for the low price of $24.95. The best college basketball data out there to help you make your picks or just understand the game better as you're watching the tournament.
There you go. Ken, thank you, my friend. Be well. We'll get you back soon, okay?
All right. Appreciate it, son. Thank you.
KenPom.com. His stuff is utilized by a ton of pro teams and a lot of college teams. Very well respected. Some good stuff there. UMBC Howard tips off on True TV in about 12 minutes. Then Texas NC State later on tonight. All right, we'll catch a break. Casey Jacobson's going to stop by coming up next. But I want to let you know that IFA Country Stores, they've got everything you need for your lawn, no matter its size or shape. Their 4+ lawn care program can promote healthy green lawn for you this summer. They're the same products used in many local sports fields, golf courses, and city parks only at IFA. And also, if you want to win $1 million after utilizing that knowledge from Ken Pomeroy, one bracket, $1 million, the ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM $1 Million Bracket Challenge is live. Sign up today on ESPN700sports.com. That's brought to you by Big Willie's, Game Day Men's Health, Intermountain Bobcat, Budweiser, the Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Burger Fusion, and the Utah RV Super Show. Casey Jacobson joins us next on ESPN 700. All right, great stuff today from Ken Pomeroy. He likes Howard tonight in a low-scoring game and Texas tonight in a high-scoring game. Of course, BYU plays the winner of Texas and NC State. Our next guest, college basketball legend, played pro ball for a while, was almost a Utah Ute. Little known fact about my friend Casey Jacobson, who stops by on a Tuesday. Casey, how are you, sir?
Dude, are you telling me that I have to follow Ken Pomeroy?
You do, and I'm going to ask you about all the metrics. I need all your knowledge. Are you ready to go?
No, that's like the worst news ever. Ken Pomeroy is like the guru of basketball analytics. What else can I possibly add to what we're talking about today? I'll try my best, man.
Well, what I'd like to start with, even though we've said it before, I just think it's such a fun story that you nearly played for Rick here in Salt Lake. You were almost a Ute, weren't you?
I was almost a Ute. Rick Majerus came to my hometown of Glendora, California, came to my high school. He watched the practice. After the practice, we sat in my head coach's office, and he told me, if you come to Utah, I guarantee I will make you a first-round NBA draft pick. And then he got Andre Miller on speakerphone and said, hey, Andre, tell him that if he comes here, he'll be as good as you in the pros someday. And so he put on the full-court press that day. And, it didn't work, but it almost worked.
Well, I can remember, because I went to Utah in the 90s, and I can remember hearing that there was a chance that you were going to go. Now, look, everything worked out just fine for you, Casey. There's no doubt about that. Let's talk about your NCAA responsibilities. You're going to be on Westwood One, right, on the radio call. Do you have your schedule yet?
I do. So I'm on a flight later tonight. I go to Oklahoma City, so I'm in the South region, and I will be covering, so the number 2 seed Houston Cougars will be playing there on Thursday. The Nebraska Cornhuskers, number 2 seed, will be looking for their first ever NCAA tournament win, which should come. I mean, they play Troy, but still, it should come. So that'll be pretty exciting to be able to cover that. I also have St. Mary's and Vanderbilt plays McNeese, so that's the region that I'm covering.
Let me ask you about Houston, because we're in Big 12 country with Utah and BYU. I've seen them play up close twice. Went down to Provo and then watched them here in Salt Lake. A 2 seed, obviously, with a lot of experience and a great head coach, and I feel like they've got a shot. Yeah, is that fair to say?
Yeah. Definitely, that's an understatement. I would put them on a short list of teams that wouldn't surprise me at all if they win the title. There's a lot of teams that I think can make a Final Four. Houston is definitely one of the handful of teams that could really win the national championship. They have the 5th-ranked defense in the country. That is no surprise. Their offense is not as consistent, but it's still pretty dang good. I mean, they played in the national title game last year against Florida. Should have won that game. I believe they were up 9 points with like 3 minutes to go or something. And 3 of those starters on that team last year came back. So Emmanuel Sharp, Milos Uzan in the backcourt, and then JoJo Tugler, their starting power forward. All 3 of those guys have as much experience as any college basketball player could ever have. The other 2 starting 5 guys are freshmen. Kingston Flemings, one of the better point guards in the country, and Chris Sinak Jr. So that's unusual for a Kelvin Sampson team to have 2 freshmen. Like, he's had 1 freshman here and there, but like 2 in their starting lineup, that's new. But they're both awesome. They're both NBA caliber guys, so they bolster this team. They do not have a clear weakness at all. Although I would say they're not like a special shooting team. They shoot 35% from 3. That's not like amazing. It's not terrible. It's just kind of right in the middle. So I do believe that they will need to shoot better than their average in order to hoist a trophy, but they're capable.
Let me ask you about Kingston Flemings, because we're in Salt Lake City where our pro basketball team is currently delicately holding on to their draft asset. And, of course, everyone would hope that they would get a top 3 pick, which would be, DeBonsa, Peterson, and Boozer, in whatever order you think. But they're most likely to draft 5 or 6 thereabouts, and Kingston Flemings is a name that continues to come up. What do you like most about him?
Well, despite the fact that he's not very big, it's the only thing I really like. They list him as 6'4", but like I would say he's like on the 6'3", so I think they give him an extra inch. he's not very stocky. He could use a little bit more pounds on him. But besides that, he is explosive first step, very good three-point shooter, 39% three-point shooter, although it's not what he wants. He only averages about 1 3-point make a game. So he's not looking to shoot threes, but when he does, he makes them, which is good for his potential as an NBA player. I think he could be a very nice three-point shooter, but what he really wants to do is break you down, get in the paint. He's an excellent passer. Had the third highest assist rate in the Big 12 conference, and the Big 12's got some really, really good point guards, including Christian Anderson from Texas Tech, Jaden Bradley of Arizona. So Kingston was right up there as a playmaker, and defensively also gives great effort. So to me, he doesn't force shots. He's not a ball hog. He turns it on when he needs to. I feel like he could use just a little bit more weight. I sometimes am he's kind of skinny. Other than that, love him.
So let me ask you, just of the 4-1 seats, Michigan's got an injury to one of their guards, the ACL, with LJ Kaysen. So maybe they're vulnerable. And we talk a lot about trying to help people this time of year to fill brackets. And when it comes to picking upsets, that's fun early. When it comes to the games late, it's usually chalk, more or less. Certainly was last year. All the number 1 seeds, which one do you like the most, and which one do you think is most vulnerable for a potential early exit?
You mentioned Michigan. So LJ Kaysen is their backup point guard or backup guard. LJ Kaysen was averaging 9 points a game, but to me, Michigan is still just as stout. I guess they will be asking Elliot Cadeau, their starting point guard, to play a little bit more minutes, but I don't think that's an issue. I have Michigan winning the national championship in my own bracket. I think Duke is more vulnerable with their issues. So Caleb Foster is a starter. And is out for the entire tournament. He had surgery on his foot. And then Patrick Gongba is supposed to be back, but we haven't seen him on the floor in over a week and a half. So we'll just wait to see on that. But certainly that would be 2 starters out for Duke would make them the most vulnerable number 1 seed. Other than that, I think Arizona, they have been so consistent. There's nothing about Arizona that makes me doubt them. There's nothing about Arizona's West bracket that makes me doubt that they will not come out of it. Although a potential Sweet 16 matchup with either Wisconsin or Arkansas does make my ears kind of stand up a little bit, whoa, I want to watch that game. But outside of that, I think that Arizona should come out of that West bracket pretty easily. So those are the 2, Arizona and Michigan, that I think are the best teams in the country and should be playing against each other in the Final Four.
Of course, this time of year, people love the upsets. Any of the first round, double-digit seeds stand out to you? Alabama has a lot of metrics that like them, but 2.1 pounds of marijuana, I'm going to go on a limb, it's a little excessive. So I think our guy Aiden Holloway is probably not going to play, so maybe some people are looking at that game. Any of the first round double-digit seed matchups as far as an upset stand out to you?
Oh, yeah, so many. So you mentioned Alabama. I have Alabama winning their first round game, but I have them losing to Akron. I have Akron going through the Sweet 16.
Huh.
The Zips are out of the MAC conference, which is the same conference that Miami of Ohio won in the regular season. Akron only played Miami of Ohio once. It was a 3-point game. That game was in Ohio. Akron ends up winning the MAC tournament. They've won 10 straight games offensively. This team can shoot it. They run up and down. So obviously that would be a team that I believe in and think that they could do some real damage. Looking at my bracket, I have Santa Clara beating Kentucky, although that's probably a pretty popular pick. I have VCU beating North Carolina, but then losing the second round game. And I have South Florida beating Louisville. Those are the double-digit upsets that I personally have selected in my own bracket, but look, man, this is a single elimination tournament. And it's like the 5 and the 12, the 6 and the 11s, the difference between those 2 teams are never very big to me. Just power conference brands versus these mid-majors who have won games, who deserve to be there, right? So that the the gap is always very small in those instances.
You reference VCU over Carolina. It brings up an interesting dynamic because I asked Ken, if I take the 1 and 2s off the table, who's the most likely 3 to do something, Final Four, maybe beyond. He said Illinois. And look, they would have to get through Houston. That would be tough. But what do you know about Illinois? What do you think about their chances to maybe make a run?
Yeah, I know a lot about Illinois. At Fox, I've been covering them all season. So, Illinois is very deep. They're powerful offensively. They'll put 5 guys on the floor that can all make threes, and that includes their center. So they start Tomislav Ivicic, a 7'1" center who loves to shoot threes. He can play back to the basket, but he really wants to launch threes. So his favorite thing to do is. Keaton Wagler is their point guard, a freshman that was a 3-star recruit out of high school, wasn't supposed to be much, ends up being their best player. He's 6'6", pick and roll savant, a shooter with deep range, shooting 41% from 3 this season. They just have an embarrassment of riches because they have Kylan Boswell still in the backcourt, who's a senior. They have Andre Stojakovic, an upperclassman that can drop 25 at any moment. David Mirkovic, a freshman, that at power forward is about 6'9", can pass and shoot and score. They are impressive. They're hard to guard. Their fluctuation has been on the defensive end. Sometimes they guard, sometimes they don't. Obviously, they'll be as motivated as possible in the NCAA tournament, but that's the one bugaboo. So, like when they play, for instance, if they theoretically play Houston, it's like, can Houston defensively stop Illinois? Probably. Can Illinois stops Houston? That's the question in that game. I have Houston moving on in my own bracket when those two meet.
Let me get your thoughts on our local teams. We'll start with Utah State, who lands on the 9 line, and Coach Calhoun was not too happy about that. Mountain West Conference, 1-bid league. Utah State wins the league, and they win the tournament. They see Villanova round 1, and they're actually a slight favorite. What do you make of that game?
Yeah, I mean, all these 8-9 games are most of the time a flip of the coin. I have Utah State advancing in my own bracket. I have followed both these teams, Utah State and Villanova, out of the Big East. The last recent game I did for Utah State was their loss at San Diego State. They actually kind of got throttled a little bit. Wasn't one of their best efforts, but they were able to figure it out and bounce back the way that they should. Their combination, this is just kind of like in general, I'm not like going to dive deep into Utah State, we don't have time, but when you have a backcourt combination of MJ Collins and Mason Falslev, who are like elite scorers, Mason Falslev's like, he can do a little bit of everything. Get a couple steals, rebounds, do whatever you need. Most teams in the country don't have 2 players that are that good, and they handle the ball in the backcourt. They are the decision makers. That's what makes you trust Utah State, that they will show up. I too, like Coach Calhoun, surprised that they got a 9 seed, but whatever, we move on. Villanova with first-year head coach Kevin Willard. Kevin Willard's been around the block a few hundred times, but with first year with this program, I too like their backcourt. Caden Lewis is a name to remember. Caden Lewis is Villanova's freshman point guard, very talented and a big point guard. At that, I think he's like 6'5", really good driver, can finish around the rim, a reluctant three-point shooter, but like he's got real game and poise, which is what you need. But, he's never played in an NCAA tournament before, so we'll see how that one goes.
BYU will take on the winner of NC State and Texas tonight as a 6th seed. Should they win that game, they will probably take on Gonzaga, all due respect to Kennesaw State, without Braden Huff, who reportedly is out round 1, round 2. Question 1 is, do you think BYU is in trouble against either NC State or Texas? Question 2 is, how far do you think their ceiling will take them?
Yeah, so I actually have BYU advancing to the Elite 8, which shows you kind of what I think of them. I think BYU is a very good team that has underperformed in so many ways on the defensive end, and I'm not quite sure why. They don't lack for anything. When I watch them, I'm like, man, this team, I know the injury to Richie Saunders back in the Colorado game, that was devastating for him and for the program. But I still think BYU is an excellent basketball team. They're not elite. BYU is not a top 12 team in the country, but like between 13 and 20, yes, I do think that BYU stacks up with any of those other teams that you want to mention in there. So when I'm looking at their bracket, will they struggle against NC State or Texas? I don't know, maybe, but they still should win. Then you mentioned a matchup with Gonzaga, but without Braden Huff. I like BYU's chances there. And then Purdue, to me, I have them losing in the second round. I think Purdue is the weakest 2 seed in the entire tournament. So maybe they get a Miami, Florida. Maybe they get a Missouri. I don't know if that happens. But if Purdue advances, BYU against Purdue, the weakest 2 seed, that to me is a coin flip game. Purdue can't guard. They're like 50th in the country in defensive efficiency. How are they going to stop A.J. DeBonsa and Robert Wright III? I don't know. So to me, it's like I think BYU's got a great shot at advancing. They have zero chance of advancing on a neutral court against Arizona. Just don't see how that happens. But, yeah, I like BYU a lot.
All right, Casey, before I set you loose, we need your Final Four, and who's cutting the nets down?
Yeah, I got Arizona out of the West, Michigan out of the Midwest, Houston out of the South, and Duke out of the East. But it's a reluctant pick for Duke. I just don't know about them, but I don't know about anybody else in that region. I don't like Michigan State that much. UConn's been 7-4 in their last 11 games, so it was almost like a default pick for me with Duke. But Houston and Michigan in the national championship game with the Wolverines cutting down the nets. The Wolverines, they just have an extra gear on offense and defense, and when they're playing well, they are the best team in the country.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the time. Safe travels, and we'll have some of your games on our airwaves, so we'll wish you best of luck there, certainly. Thanks, Casey.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, Casey Jacobson, college basketball legend. He was the Pac-10 co-freshman of the year, went on to play in the NBA, and now is doing some work with our friends at Westwood One. He'll be on some of the calls as the madness of March is upon us. Speaking of March, how are those New Year's resolutions going? Did you set a resolution to lose weight, maybe get back in shape, or get in the best shape you've ever been in? John Starks is on TV. Sorry, I'm like the dog from Up. I see something, squirrel. Here's the deal. Game Day Men's Health can help you out. Okay, it's a client that's new on the show, but it's not new for me because I've been working with them. Now Patrick Ewing's on FaceTime. I've been working with them for 2 years now, and I set a goal to get in the best shape that I've ever been in, and I was able to accomplish it, but with their help, because when I tried to do it at an advanced age, if we're honest, it was more difficult than I anticipated. So after a couple months, I was pretty frustrated, had a friend recommend Game Day Men's Health. They're giving you the very same deal that they give me, which is this. Number one, you get a free consultation. It is no charge and no obligation. They're going to take some blood, and they're going to go over your levels with you and say, okay, you're doing pretty good here. Here's where we can actually help you out. For me, it was supplementing testosterone, and it was also utilizing some of their peptides. So those are the 2 products I use. And after starting the process with their help within 2 months, the progress was 10 times it was prior to. The nice thing is 2 years later, I've maintained it because I follow their process. But here's the kicker. You're getting 50% off your membership, which makes all this stuff incredibly affordable. Once upon a time, it was for athletes, celebrities trying to get in shape for games or movies. Now, this is for you. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Locations in Lehigh, Pleasant Grove, Cottonwood Heights, South Ogden. Find the closest one near you. Tell them I sent you. Make sure to say that so you can kick in this 50% off all year long. Free consultation, 50% off our friends at Game Day Men's Health. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program on a Tuesday is next on ESPN 700. Can't pinpoint it. What do we got? What are you taking us out with?
A little Modest Mouse? Come on.
Okay. My hipster friend Brett would be so proud of us.
I like Modest Mouse.
Yeah, they're good.
Not like my usual lane, but they're good.
What's the name of this one?
Ocean. Oh, no. Good Times Are Killing Me.
Good Times Are Killing Me. Speaking of good times, what's for dinner? Burger Fusion is for dinner for you. I'm telling you, if you've not been, it's the best burger place around. One of the best burger places I've ever tried. It's brand new. It's at Trolley Square, right around the corner from Whole Foods, right where that trolley, like the wing company used to be. It's right there. Check out the Velvet Smoke Show. Creamy peanut butter, berry jam, caramelized onions, hot honey pickles with pepper, jelly, aioli. Sounds unconventional, but it's awesome. I'd recommend going in. You can DoorDash it, but it usually shows up cold. It's not Burger Fusion's fault. It's a burger. You should eat it warm. So head on in, Trolley Square. You can order and pick it up as well. Bunch of different sides. Onion rings, fries. They've got fried Havarti pickles, a bunch of sauces. It's really good. It's Wagyu beef. It is fresh, and it's unique. So our friends at Burger Fusion are hooking you up for dinner tonight, right at Trolley Square. Special thanks to Morgan Scally, Utah head football coach, and Paul Kirk and everybody who put that event together today. That was a lot of fun. When you hear guys like me, Morgan, break down all 22 film. We got to be careful what we say here because all of this is off the record. I just
record.
Yeah, I just like when I get into. I don't want to get too deep. I always just feel like I'm confusing listeners. But when I talk about gap sound assignments and countering offensive plays with my own schematic adjustments, what's the most impressive thing to you?
It's just a chess game, dude. So
good point.
I'm just consuming it all, trying to digest it a little bit. The most impressive thing is the how quickly you can catch on.
Yeah.
Basically, you could go out there as the defensive coordinator. You can get 40 seconds of the play clock.
Yeah.
And, you can call the defense. You don't know the hand signals. Yeah. They keep those under wraps.
For sure.
But if you did, Colton Swan might have some competition.
I mean, the thing is, I don't need hand signals because we're just going to do what we do. And whatever, you can try to steal our signs and schemes, but we're going to bring pressure with 4. We're going to press man on the outside. We're going to mix it up a little bit, and we're going to confuse the quarterback. And look, it's just relentless, smart, and hasty ball hawks. I mean, I came up with that a few years ago. I think it's
RSNB.
Yeah, indeed. I will say this. There's a good feeling in that building.
There is.
I'm a results over vibes guy. You know me. But everyone really, really seems like they're juiced for the Morgan Scally era to begin.
Yeah. I mean, there's just been a groundswell of excitement for one Morgan Scally, right? Usually when you move on from a legendary head coach, there's a lot of skepticism, a lot of, maybe, I don't want to say cold feet, but you're nervous about what's next. And to be honest with you, you probably should have some of that just because of what Kyle did here. But with a guy like Morgan, man, it's easy to cheer for him and it's easy to believe in him as well. So, there's a good feeling in that building, and I think deservedly so.
All right, let's get out of here. I want to remind you I will be on TV tonight, continuing this workload. 10:35 KMYU, Talking Jazz with my friend Dave Fox. Porter, what comes our way on a Wednesday edition of this radio program?
Dave Fox, of course.
Nice.
Pablo Mastroeni will stop by the program.
Definitely nice.
Spencer Linton to talk some BYU on the eve of their NCAA tournament matchup, and Chris Comrani in studio to get you halfway through the work week.
There we go. Love that. So join us for a jam-packed Wednesday show. We will know BYU's opponent as NC State and Texas play tonight. Special thank you to Gordy Chase, Tim McMahon, Ken Pomeroy, and Casey Jacobson for the sound you missed from the show today. The website is ESPN700sports.com. You should download our mobile app and take us on the go. Best way to listen to the station. And then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. So subscribe, rate, review. Say nice things in the comments and give us all the stars. Special thanks to everyone who reached out for my birthday. Fun day today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Wednesday Drive, as always, you can find that right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.